Heard the Mark Patrick weight loss hypnosis hype? Well, I attended because my father stopped smoking. I lost 70 pounds and my friend lost 20 pounds in the first 2 months.
Wow, what are you waiting for? Join Mark Patrick seminars and lose the weight or stop smoking guaranteed for only $49.99.
Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Ross Johnston. SEC Media Days continue today with Mississippi State, Florida, Oklahoma, and Alabama set to speak. 3HL will be interviewing Blake Shapen, Isaac Smith, and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. You can catch that here on The Zone. In NFL news, the Jets made a pair of big-time moves yesterday, locking up wide receiver Garrett Wilson and corner Sauce Gardner to long-term deals. Wilson reached a 4-year, $130 million extension with the team, and Gardner agreed to a 4-year, $120 million deal, making him the highest-paid cornerback in the NFL. Nashville SC looks to bounce back tonight after a loss to Inter Miami as they take on Columbus at Geodis Park. Kick is set for 7:30 p.m., and you can listen to it right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So Ross feels he's entitled to criticize me after giving an update that might put the rest of the radio audience to sleep. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. We're happy to have you. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. F&M Bank Chat also at your disposal. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Go ahead and tell them what you just said to me in my ear as the show's music was playing before the radio show began after your C- at best performance yesterday. What do you got?
I just said that I was listening to your little intro to the show, and it said talking shop with the NFL's best and brightest, and I said I wouldn't categorize you as the best and the brightest.
Well, it didn't say that I was the best and the brightest. It says that I talked to them, which is the nature of the show. So not only are you wrong on the front end, you weren't listening.
Yeah, you're talking to him today.
Ooh, there's nobody on the show today. You?
The best and the brightest.
Please. I heard you got some feedback after your full-time producer debut yesterday, and the feedback was not very, maybe I'm a little harsher on you than they were. Maybe they're a bit more kind, more sensitive to your feelings, but what feedback did you get yesterday?
I got crap from my buddies for my having to explain the wedding weekend that they were also at.
Yes.
And then I heard the grade that you gave me, which was a C-, and I was like, hey, look, if Bud gives me a C-, that's like a B+ for other people's scales. So
I think that's fair.
I'll take that, honestly.
I am a tough grader. That is the truth. SEC Media Days continues on. We got one big thing for all programs speaking today. We will also get to the Texas one big thing that we did not do yesterday. You understand why we spent a little more time on the University of Tennessee, given that was their day at the podium, and given that we care about them more than the rest of them. I also have gotten some feedback from Robert Walsh with his illness as he battles through bronchitis because Karen Davis on YouTube asks, how is Bert today? I had texted him this morning at 9 a.m. He said, effing awful. Mornings are the worst. He's legitimately having trouble breathing, he said. They've got me on an inhaler, but I wheeze with every breath. Haven't had a cig since Monday, so you know that it's bad. I feel like I should make him stop smoking cigarettes because I know I'm prone to the occasional drunk cig when the two of us are out when we collectively are out, whether Lucas is there or not. Robert usually has the goods, so I'm likely to bum one off him if we happen to be out and about as we were at the WWE situation. But I feel like he's not allowed to take sick days if he is as big a chain smoker as he is. I feel like I'm going to have a come to Jesus moment with him.
Do you think he's still just ripping them while dealing with bronchitis?
Yeah, I think he's lying to me. I think he's saying that he has not had a cigarette since Monday, so you know it's bad. I'm assuming that he's just smoking through the bronchitis.
I would imagine, but you never know. Maybe this is his wake-up call, potentially.
0% chance.
I need a change here.
I think that the only thing, because, not that I am any kind of managerial expert or anything like that, but just having to deal with the three of you on a regular basis and, whatever Jackson does or does not provide to the radio show at this point in his professional career, I feel like I'm just going to have to be mean to him. Like, I feel like that's the only thing. That's the only real managerial tool that I have at my disposal, is just to publicly shame him at every turn, whether it's about his weight or his chain smoking of cigarettes, to actually enact change. Because I do feel like bullying still works that way.
But that's all you do. Like, there's no variant. There's no kind love. So I don't.
There's no carrot to the stick.
You're acting like there's a decision to make here. You've already made that up. Already made your mind up.
No, I mean, that's just my general state of being. So maybe I guess what you're saying is I have to adjust. I have to work in some kindness on occasion, so that when I'm mean to him, instead of always being mean to him, the meanness will have more power behind it.
Yes, because if you just do the same thing all the time, it's going to sound, it's going to get repetitive.
Yeah.
If you sprinkle in a little kindness here and there.
Oh, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Because I just look at him and there's so many things that I want to say to him, that I want to criticize. And normally I'm right. But, maybe if we're going to actually have to enact change around here so that he can be available for the radio show instead of smoking cigs through his bronchitis on a week when I probably need him more than not that I would tell him this. I probably have needed Robert this week more than I ever have. And, of course, he's decided to mail it in. So we will bury him as a result when he comes back, and we'll see if we can't get him to at least cut back. Maybe a pack a day as opposed to 2 or whatever it is that he's smoking. I don't know. I can't win this fight with Kirby. I've stopped fighting that long ago. Maybe I'll have better success with Robert, because I know that when I'm mean to Robert, when I'm genuinely mean to Robert, that he feels that a little more than Kirby does, because I know how to get him.
Maybe he'll call into the show today.
0% chance.
Yeah.
Nor do I want him to. If he calls the show today, I will rip his ass.
How much college football do you think he's going to play this week?
I don't think he's left that video game I can't get him to stop playing the video game when we're trying to do primetime, when we're trying to prep for the radio show. The man is glued to this video game, and I know he's not alone. It's a bigger problem for Cheyenne than it is for me. But I'm certain that he's just using this as an excuse to win the national championship with his ECU Pirates.
His quarterback might honestly be a 5-year NFL vet by this point in time. At
this point. We're going to get to some SEC Media Day stuff. We're going to talk about the most important thing Josh Heupel said yesterday. I do have I don't know, is it best described as a case with a Nashville SC logo on it that was waiting for me in the studio today. But I think this is for Lucas.
Package would probably be the best description.
Package. All right, but it's a brown, like it's more ornate than your average package. Like it's still made of a package-like material, but there's like I don't know if it's real leather. I don't know if it's faux leather. This Nashville SC emblem, for those of you watching on Zone TV today, I feel like if I opened it, it would be like opening Lucas's mail when he's not here, which makes me more inclined to do it anyway. But I don't know if we should wait until Lucas and Robert get back to see what's in the package, because I'm assuming the soccer team didn't send me something.
It could be Lucas's extra large soccer kit, and by extra large I mean probably a large top and a XXL bottom.
I think he's a medium top and a double X down low, but not in the way that most men would like to be a double X down low. It's the opposite end for him.
Little hourglass body.
Yeah, we thought about doing the shelf test with him a couple of years ago, and honestly, I think his ass has gotten bigger. I'm convinced that all the pasta he's making is just going straight to his hips. But.
Look, I've just happened to see it a couple times. It's one of those things where you're not like looking for it; you just happen to stumble across it, and wow, that thing it's there.
It's there.
615-737-1045
is the number if you want to jump in. So we had SEC Media Days yesterday, and most importantly, we had Josh Heupel at SEC Media Days yesterday. We're not going to play audio from him at the podium. We're going to play audio from him on 3HL because, of course, the most amount of people want to know about is not the offensive line competition, who's replacing Dylan Sampson is obviously a huge part of the conversation, given how much of that offense leaned and relied upon the running game and Dylan Sampson, who ended up being drafted in the NFL this year. But, of course, it's about the quarterback battle. And this was Josh Heupel yesterday visiting with 3HL. You can check out the full interview via the podcast page. I'm sure it has been posted individually on YouTube as well. This was the Vols head coach with the rest of the crew in Atlanta.
We got a competition. Let's go. That's fun. It's not anything we haven't been through at Tennessee or previously. The thing that I do like is they're good teammates. They care about each other. They've handled it in a positive way, even though they're competing every minute of the day in the position room, on the practice field, in the weight room. They've handled it in a really positive way. They encourage and challenge each other the right way. Strength of any one group can't be one guy. That's true at quarterback too, and I've lived a life where somebody's got to step in, and so at the end of the day, we're clear with our communication to those guys. Listen, you're all competing. Everything you're doing every day is going to be a part of that process and decision process, and at the end of the day, somebody's got to learn it, earn it, and go take a job. And I think it's important at every position, but certainly at quarterback, that your team sees that too. It reinforces everything that you talk about.
So where are you as a coach on playing two quarterbacks? Do you lean one way or another?
I did that as a JUCO quarterback. I think it's hard. We divided halves.
Oh, wow.
That is hard.
Unique situation.
Yeah.
Guy that had left didn't qualify or didn't get his last class, came back. He was a good player. I'm still great friends with him. But we both had an opportunity to move on and go play, at a high college level too. But at the end of the day, it can't just be one guy. And I think it's, if you're going to try to trade him in, play out, or quarter, that's tough to manage. You want somebody to be the starter, but at the end of the day, we're going to find out who that is. And there's no set timetable. I don't think you can do that. You can't handcuff yourself. They got to go earn it. And so we'll go through that.
That's the most important thing he said yesterday by a mile. He don't want to split the quarterback reps, and he gave a very specific example as to why. Now, will both quarterbacks or all three quarterbacks in some form or fashion get an opportunity to compete? Of course, but he's talking more specifically, it sounds like, based on Dawn's question, about the in-game situation, because that's, the college football programs have done that. They will continue to do that into the future. So at least it's an option that would have been on the table for Tennessee if they chose to take that path. Now, to split, did he say split quarters?
He said he split halves with somebody.
Split halves, okay. To split quarters would have been crazy. That's some NFL preseason stuff.
Based off his answer on that, I doubt he will be splitting quarterbacks during games.
And
this year.
I know it's a little closer to the college football season, so it's not a fair comparison for me to say why would, when Josh Heupel, when it is an option and a viable option depending on the program and the quarterback situation, for college football programs to entertain. I wish the Titans really would have never given any credence to the idea of the quarterbacks getting Cam getting as many reps as Will did, or vice versa. Will Levis, even if it was during the OTAs. Like, I know I'm nitpicking, and I know it's not a big deal because Cam Ward is going to get the vast majority of the reps, and Cam Ward's going to be the starter provided that he's healthy and all these different things. But, I just think it's so easy. Just come out and say it. Just come out and say it. Even if you want him to earn it, he can still earn it. And you'd be like, all right, you're the number one overall pick. Go get it, bud. These are the expectations. Let's go. I understand why Callahan didn't do it that way. Even if I didn't, I don't want to say I outright disagreed with it, but I just for what? Why are we even entertaining this conversation? It's not to the degree of Urban Meyer in training camp splitting reps between Gardner Minshew and Trevor Lawrence to the point that made you just want to scream and yell and grab Uncle Herb by the shoulders and shake him, among all the other terrible things that he did when he was the Jags head coach. But that was one of the dumbest. So I like that Josh Heupel is saying that on the front end. I like that the path forward is going to involve, or at least ideally would involve, one starting quarterback for the Tennessee Vols in 2025. So that's the most important thing that I heard out of any Josh Heupel media availability yesterday. We'll also hear from Miles Kitzelman later in the show. He had some good quotes with 3HL. Are we going to do headlines?
I guess we're going to do headlines.
Okay. Are we going to do headlines? What do you mean you guess? You don't have headlines prepared?
It is on the grid, so we will be doing headlines.
Okay, that's all you had to say. See why it's like Callahan and the quarterbacks. He's gonna be the starter, but we'll split reps right now. Just say we're gonna do headlines.
God forbid I keep you on your toes a little bit here.
Yeah, because that's what you're doing. Headlines are next.
Yes, it's that wonderful time. NFL headlines with Ross Johnston today. Here we go. We'll start out with the Jets.
Third person reference, then here we go, as if the radio audience wasn't fully prepared for all the electricity that your voice provides.
I like this music a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll start out with the Jets. The New York Jets obviously made a pair of big moves yesterday, locking up Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. Garrett Wilson reached a 4-year, $130 million extension with the team, and there's $90 million guaranteed on that deal, which I believe was reported that he is the first receiver in NFL history to get $31 million over his each year after playing only 3 years. So he's getting the bag quicker than everybody. And then Sauce Gardner agreed to a 4-year, $120 million deal, which made him the highest paid corner in the NFL and reset that market.
All right, so I'm of two minds on this because, one, those are two talented young players, and as somebody who's covered an organization that has let talented young players walk in the interest of contract negotiations, a la A.J. Brown, or because they thought they'd be able to draft and develop and retain better than they actually did in the case of, for example, Jack Conklin, I feel like this is the first sign in a long time of the Jets being run, maybe ever in my lifetime, of the Jets being run like an actual professional football organization. Sauce Gardner hasn't been a great player, though, here in the last couple of years. He's fallen off a little bit. Now, I don't think it's fair for a player to be on a team like the Jets to go through all the things that Jets players have to go through as a part of that media market and that quarterback mess and firings and hirings and firings again, and say, well, you're expected to be at your best every time you're out there. Hell, I mean, that was one of the criticisms, if you want to look at it as criticism, of Jeff Simmons in the top 10 defensive tackle rankings, is that it's hard to rush when you're constantly trailing, but that's what the money's for, right? So at the end of the day, you're expected to be at your best as a professional athlete every time you take the field, if you're on a 3-win football team or a 10-win football team or a 12-win football team.
Agreed, but I think that's really good from Darren Muji, their new GM, just showing that they want to keep the talent that obviously he didn't draft, but that was drafted to the Jets, wants to keep it in-house and lock everything up. I think the players on the team, I would expect, would like seeing that from their new GM.
Well, that's the biggest difference between where the Jets are right now and, for example, just to bring it local, where the Titans are right now. There were not players on the Titans roster to keep. You were very quick, if you're Mike Borgonzi or even Rand Carthon, to try and turn that roster over as fast as humanly possible, because Garrett Wilson is significantly better than the Titans' former first-round pick at wide receiver, Treylon Burks. Or I guess they don't really have a specific cornerback example to cite in that instance, but like there were not players. That's why last year's spending spree made as much sense as it did, because there were no players on the Titans roster worth paying. The Jets do have players. They have Quinnen Williams. They have Garrett Wilson. They have Sauce Gardner. They have Olu Fashanu. They have talented young players at critical positions that are going to be important as they continue to try and drag this thing into the future, whether that's Justin Fields at quarterback or not. So I'm completely good with the contract, even though Sauce Gardner hasn't been the best version of himself. Garrett Wilson dealing with some frustrations last year. We know that he has a lot more to give, and that Aaron Rodgers' presence seemed to kind of become, I don't think it was kind of, there was reporting that it became a bit malignant, that the two of them were not seeing eye to eye, and shocking to nobody that the 20-something, low 20s wide receiver has a hard time relating to the 40-plus-year-old quarterback, and I'm sure the same could be said the opposite way. But they're right to keep these two in place. The Jets are not a franchise that I've accused of having good planning or sound football decision-making. Hell, they don't keep their people in place long enough to be able to formulate that plan, which has also been an accusation that we've made of the Titans here in the last couple of years. But it's the rare thing. Jets fans, though, are crazy during the offseason, because anytime you ask them, they will tell you before a football season begins, they're convinced that they're going to win 9, 10 games every year. And that's very, very rarely how it goes for a Jets fan. So I appreciate that they're optimistic right now. There's worse reasons to be optimistic about the Jets than retaining Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. Those are two good deals.
Agreed. On another piece of NFL news, so Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin spoke yesterday, and a quote from that was that he was pretty frustrated with them, and Ian Rappaport has reported that he wants a deal that eclipses $30 million a year, so kind of in that Garrett Wilson range, honestly. That could get a little dicey in Washington if they can't get that figured out. I know they brought in Debo, but Terry McLaurin had a pretty outstanding season last year and has played with a lot of different quarterbacks and been very consistent during his time there.
You have audio of Terry McLaurin expressing some level of frustration, yes?
I do.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, I've been pretty frustrated, I'm not going to lie. Everything that has transpired up until this point has been disappointing and frustrating. I've wanted to continue my career here. I've created my life here. My wife and I have bought our first home here, so this has been somewhere where I've always wanted to be.
He said that the Commanders have not had a conversation with him in a period of months at this point. He said no negotiations have taken place over the past month. Commanders not commenting on any negotiations other than the GM, Adam Peters, who, by the way, just got there pretty recently and may have designs of his own as to what makes the most sense for his vision around Jaden Daniels. That was his number 2 overall draft pick, and the biggest reason, among several other reasons, that the Commanders were the biggest story in the NFL last year, making the NFC Championship game. They fell short, but Jaden Daniels doing things I don't know that I've ever seen a rookie quarterback do throughout the course of a season, whether it be statistically or just accomplishment-wise. And Terry McLaurin has been a good soldier, to his point. Terry, and this is a hard line to draw in any profession that relies upon contracted work. It's not about the emotion of it, because he's talking about he wants to be there for the rest of his career. He's built his life up there. He's in the final year of a 3-year, $68 million deal, if I'm not mistaken, on McLaurin. But it's not about your personal situation. The emotions of it, if I'm just to play devil's advocate here, I don't want an NFL front office structure that makes decision based off emotion. You can be grateful for what, and I'm not necessarily advocating for Terry McLaurin to not get his money, because I think he is a good enough player for a young core, and the continuity of that is going to be important to propping Jaden Daniels up. Is he worth $30 million a year the way that wide receivers are making right now? You could probably have that conversation. I would not put him in that price range, but I understand why it's in his best interest to continue to push for a contract like that. He can go somewhere else to a worse football team and get that money.
So do you think Garrett Wilson deserves his money then?
I think Garrett Wilson, if he wants to stay in New York, despite having an unsettled quarterback situation, then Garrett Wilson deserves his money more than Terry McLaurin is now more expendable because they have a better quarterback situation. The Jets need Garrett Wilson because they have no idea really what Justin Fields is going to be on that, what is it, a 2-year contract that they signed him to this offseason?
I think so. And their wide receiver, too, is also, I believe, Alan Lazard right now, or Josh Reynolds.
Titans legend. Garrett Wilson is infinitely more needed on the Jets than Terry McLaurin is right now on the Commanders. Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't make an effort to try and keep that core together. I don't have to tell Titans fans what it's like to try and win a negotiation against a wide receiver that is talented enough. Now, McLaurin is not AJ. AJ, you could make the argument, is the best wide receiver in the league right now. In fact, I think I might make the argument that AJ Brown is the best wide receiver in the league right now, even in a league that has Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson running around out there. I think AJ can do so much as a well-rounded player, so it's not the same conversation, but the parallels are kind of there. This is a guy who's soldiered through the bad stuff, who is still a highly productive player, and is probably somebody who means a lot to that organization, to that locker room. So you would be doing something that makes football sense and human interest sense, but it should be based off football decision-making first and foremost, as opposed to the emotion of it, even though what Terry is saying is completely understandable, and I'm sure the vast majority of people who work for somebody else, who are employees as opposed to employers in the audience, will get that too. it should mean something to the business if you're somebody who's negotiating on behalf of yourself. But the business has to think about the business first and foremost, and if there are more cost-effective ways to supplement that passing game that don't involve tying $30 million a year up in Terry McLaurin, then that's incumbent upon Adam Peters to make that decision. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do, because I don't think that they should keep Debo or trade for Debo Samuels and be comfortable getting rid of Terry McLaurin. Because my biggest question about Debo Samuel is he going to be the kind of player that made him so special in Washington that he was in San Francisco? That's a big job for Cliff Kingsbury to figure out. Debo Samuel is as much running back as he is wide receiver. And I know it, as he's getting older, he's less interested in getting the ball out of the backfield. Why shouldn't he be? He moves like a running back. He runs like a running back. He's got that power. He's got that low center of gravity. He's got great contact balance, but he's getting older. He doesn't want to get hit like that anymore. So is that going to be a part of the equation for Washington as they figure it out into the future? He's not good enough to be comfortable letting Terry McLaurin walk without a legitimate plan. Maybe they have that. Adam Peters was supposed to be one of the best general manager candidates available, so much so that he turned down the Titans when he first was requested for an interview. Took a year to kind of sit back in San Francisco, let better jobs become available, let more viable options become available, went to Washington and had them in the NFC Championship game in his first year. What else you got?
So going back to another team that did get a deal finalized, the Chiefs signed Trey Smith to a 4-year deal worth $94 million with $70 guaranteed, and I believe Patrick Mahomes also tweeted a smiley face yesterday, so vibes are good in Kansas City per usual.
Yeah, but that might be, this year might be the worst offensive line they've ever fielded in front of Patrick Mahomes. Like the worst season starting offensive line that they've ever fielded in front of him. So they have no choice but to give Trey Smith that money. I'm surprised they let it go as long as they did on the franchise tag before they paid him. He is excellent. He is one of the best interior offensive linemen in football, and not just because he has local ties here, and Vols fans are probably more biased for Trey Smith than they might be your average NFL player, but he's the best thing that offensive line has going that's not Creed Humphrey. And Creed Humphrey's probably the best interior offensive lineman in the NFL. But if 2 of the 5 pieces are excellent and the rest of them are tomato cans, is Patrick Mahomes good enough to make that work? Because I would not have confidence in the Chiefs' offensive line heading into this season, and given what just happened to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, I'm sure it's not even a smiley face emoji that he needs to be tweeting. It's just like a sigh of relief emoji. Do those exist? Just an exhale?
Probably.
Thank
there
God.
Needs to be like a line your head down the pillow with a smile on your face emoji.
Yeah.
Need something like that. He obviously, Mahomes has always been, he's not a runner, but he's great at the improv in the pocket, and he has great pocket awareness. He's able to move around the backfield really well, but I think, like you were saying, like when you face a team such as the Eagles, and not every team is built like the Eagles, really no one is, but when you face a team that has that many dudes in the trenches, you're eventually going to get stomped like the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl.
Well, and Philadelphia's got to figure that out, right? They let a bunch of those guys go. Sweat, Milton Williams, all took big money contracts to go somewhere else. Those are more role players in Philadelphia. They're going to draft and did draft guys to supplement that. Those young dudes will get those reps, and they'll come up, and maybe that's what Kansas City is just trying to do. Like, we're going to just have to take our lumps here. We think that we've still got a good enough roster to continue to elevate this. You've got Jalen Royals coming in there to help with the wide receiver group. I know that they have not done justice around Patrick Mahomes as far as the skill guys go in the last couple of years. Now the skill position groups are getting better. Are they going to skimp on the offensive line while they wait for those young players to kind of take hold and become the kind of talent that they believe, or that maybe they believe that those are developmental players, like long plays? Like the Titans are trying to draft players that they think will be good. Like Chimere Dike and Alec Ironman can be good NFL players in like 2 to 3 years. Nobody's expecting them to be Pro Bowlers in year 1, right? There's too many things going on here. But it raises the floor of the roster. Casey's just trying to raise the floor of their roster over the long term and make this thing sustainable. Got to the Super Bowl last year, got their asses whipped. Could they take another step back this year and not make the Super Bowl? That almost seems unthinkable, but at some point it has to happen to them the way that it happens to everybody else. Tom Brady went through this. Now, there was about a decade that passed between his first 3 Super Bowls and the last 3 Super Bowls in New England, and then he went to Tampa Bay, won the 7th basically his own volition, but recruited a lot of guys to come down there, had more power than he ever had, and was able to manifest another Super Bowl out of that. But I don't know. The Chiefs, to doubt them is a dangerous proposition. But if everything in the NFL is cyclical, and the down times for the Chiefs are just getting to the Super Bowl and getting bludgeoned, is there not reason to believe or reason to think that they could continue some level of decline while still being one of the best teams in the NFL?
Well, you would I think most people expect this to be Travis Kelce's last season.
It should be. God, he runs like he's got cement blocks on his feet.
Regardless of his kind of decline last season and potentially this season as well, that's still a big hole they're going to need to fill in the next year or two with that team.
There's a Belichick story that I feel like we need to devote more time to because of who took that job and the fact that Week 7 game here in Nashville is going to be fascinating. But Bill Belichick is taking some shots at the Patriots job in general. We were going to work it into the headlines here, but we do have phone calls to take, so maybe we'll save that Patriots story for another day. 615-737-1045. Jump in there if you want to. Let's start with Josh in Murfreesboro.
Hey, Buck.
Hey.
How you doing today?
Good, bud.
All right. I'm calling in because of Bert's bronchitis and his need to probably quit smoking. Well, I had type 2 diabetes in February of 2023 and was a heavy soda drinker. So that very day I got the diagnosis, I gave up sodas cold turkey and have not had one since. And I was an addict to those things. So if I could overcome an addiction, surely Bert can too. I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you for the call. Well done by you. Way to take your health into your own hands. I have zero confidence that Robert Walsh has the will or the strength to do what you did. Nothing about Bert strikes me as somebody who's... If he were to give up smoking, like if I can even get him to take a day off of smoking, like one day out of the 7 days, I would consider that a great victory.
Maybe he just needs to hear more stories like that. Just drill them into his head.
It's just people, we can't, when he comes back, we should just invite people. I'll put it out on Twitter. We shouldn't just invite people to call in and shame him.
You want an intervention on the balcony?
Not an on-air intervention. Because there's no, like I said, public shame is it's really my only tool to enact change anymore. Like the thing I know that I can get things done with is just making people feel bad about whatever it is that they're doing and just harping on it until they finally do something about it. So me going out there on the balcony with him at the station while he smokes his pre-show cigs, I don't think that is a sufficient enough intervention. I feel like we need to have him where he can't move, where he's chained essentially to that console back there for the 3 hours that we are required to be on air here and just have people call in and shame him.
I was going to say you're almost, and I hate to say it, an enabler at this point.
Me? Because he gives me my one weekly cigarette.
Well, and we just go out there with him, so...
Well, yeah, because it's a nice balcony, and I don't mind not sitting since we sit in here for 3 hours a day, and I shut all the windows and turn the lights off and turn this place into the bat cave so the lighting's right. I like going out on the balcony with him, but maybe, I don't know.
That's my point, though.
Are Zins any better for him than cigs? It's because it's more the act of smoking, right, than it is the actual nicotine?
Yes, they're for sure better for his lungs. Nicotine has...
nicotine obviously has... Health benefits, you said? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm not aware of those. Or are you somebody who's here to do a testimonial on behalf of nicotine?
Rather not.
Okay,
but...
very good. 615-737-1045 if you want to call in and shame Bert. I question that he's even sick. I'm just assuming that he wants to play the college football video game, and Lucas not being here gives him an excuse to leave me by myself with Ross.
And look, he might be. I mean, I've said that, and I know it's years down the line, but when college basketball comes out, I will be calling in sick. I will be sick at that point in time.
I think I'm the only one who doesn't fake sickness on the show. Like Lucas will Lucas, when he comes back from Brazil, you're damn right. Yeah, I'm showing up to do the job I'm paid to do. Now, how well I do it on any given day, that can be questioned. But Lucas, I'm convinced that when Lucas comes back from Brazil, he's going to try and take a sick day on the Monday of training camp. Just because he wants another day to, just kind of decompress from his Brazil trip.
Would you blame him?
Would I blame him? Of course not. Am I going to yell at him about it? Of course I am.
Yes, because you are a tyrant on this show.
Nobody ever told you this was a democracy. 615-737-1045 is the number. Speaking of Lucas, he's got one big thing for every SEC program as SEC Media Days continues down in Atlanta. So in the absence of Lucas and the SEC observations that we normally do, we will do one big thing on the University of Texas coming up next. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is the number. Hattie B's, the best hot chicken in the world. About 13 minutes till their Middle Tennessee locations open. You can schedule your mobile delivery if you want to. You can go to any one of their Middle Tennessee locations. If you're in Birmingham, Austin, Dallas, Vegas, Atlanta. I think there are other Hattie B's locations opening up too. We'll keep you updated because I know you guys don't just listen here in Middle Tennessee, though that's where the vast majority of you are. So, SEC Media Days are continuing. 3HL is down there crushing it. There are some headlines to get to out of yesterday's SEC Media Days, specifically involving Texas and Georgia. We are going to do one big thing about Texas, even though Texas is not at the podium today. Today is Alabama, Mississippi State, Florida, and Oklahoma all at the podium. Alabama has already gone as has Mississippi State, at least in terms of the big public, ballroom press conferences, and then I'm sure they have other media obligations on after that. But we'll work our way through the other four, the four that are scheduled for today, since we spent so much time on Tennessee yesterday for obvious reasons. Let's hear one big thing about the University of Texas.
One big thing for Texas football in 2025 is national championship or bust, but not in the same way that you look at it in regards to LSU, where if you're not in the national championship discussion, at the very least, you're talking about pressure on the head coach. I don't think that's the case for Steve Sarkisian, but there is very much an expectation to elevate to that place in 2025 with, of course, Arch Manning being the headliner. Now, all the hype's going to be around Arch, and I get it. I accept it. 5-star with all the traits that he has and the name that he has. But really, the hype from a pure football standpoint, should be around this Texas defense. That was the best in the SEC last year, one of the best in the country, allowed 15 points per game, and brings back that defensive core. You're talking about an off-ball linebacker, an Anthony Hill Jr., that had 8 sacks last season. Talented from top to bottom. They lost some parts and pieces, of course, especially in the defensive backfield, but they bring back a loaded defense that was dominant last year. And if Arch Manning can elevate at the quarterback position from what they got out of Quinn Ewers last year, which was solid, but a little bit turnover heavy, and of course injury concerns, always the case with Ewers. We all know what Arch Manning brings, that dynamic ability with his legs as well. And can Texas replace their wide receiver core that they lost last year? Gunnar Helm led this team in receiving. The tight end, Matthew Golden, a first-round pick to the Green Bay Packers. They have guys like Ryan Wingo, a talented group that needs to step up, and they brought in a Cal transfer in Jack Endries, who was a 1,000-yard receiver last year at Cal, can step in and shine right away. So there are some questions, yes, but it's arguably the most loaded roster in the country with the quarterback that has the most hype in the country and probably the best returning defense in the country. So yes, national championship or bust absolutely is the baseline in 2025 for the Texas Longhorns.
We're going to just ignore the fact that I hit the dial tone for the phone in the middle of that.
I didn't know if you were going to put that on me or not.
No, that was on me.
It's all right.
Accountability.
So I will grade you at the end of the show accordingly.
Oh, you're doing end of show grades?
I will be now after that
please
debacle.
So, with Texas and with Arch Manning, they go as Arch goes. I don't know how warranted this hype is going to be. I think that he is more likely to be in college football beyond this season, outside of declaring for the draft, based on the amount of unknowns. I don't think that the Manning family, and I know that he can do his own thing. He can blaze his own trail if he wants to. I would be surprised if he ended up doing that. Arch Manning and the Manning family do not strike me as people that are going to be willing to leave things up to chance. I think he's going to try and give himself the best possible position to, one, win a national championship. I do think that matters. Maybe it doesn't matter to every starting quarterback ever. I'm sure they say those things, but money at the end of the day, and national championships can lead to endorsement deals, can lead to financial gain, a higher NIL valuation if you decide to return to Texas next year, should Texas win the national championship, even though Lucas seems to think that Alabama should at least win the SEC. So I'm sure I'm without, just gut feeling, I'm sure we're talking about Arch Manning back at Texas next season, regardless of whether they win the national championship this year or not. National championship or bust for Texas in 2025. Not just college football playoff appearance, because obviously they were one of the teams that advanced the furthest through the college football playoff before ultimately falling just a little bit short. If Texas does not win the national championship this year, but they are, let's just say, a Final Four participant, are we going to start as we have a 12-team playoff and then in the future a 16-team playoff, are we going to consider teams that make it, programs that make it to the Final Four in the college football playoff, for example, basically like the Sweet 16 in March Madness? Is that an accomplishment enough? Obviously, you want to win the national championship, and there's way more variance in college basketball than there is in college football, though they're still, 18 to 20-year-old kids. I guess college football players have never been older than they are right now, given the rules. But is making the Final Four enough to keep the heat off Steve Sarkisian's back, or are they going to get to the point, if he comes up short again this year, where there's a conversation about, all right, what's it going to take to break through, and is he the right guy to do that? And how much of that conversation is going to revolve around Arch? I'm fascinated to see what happens to Texas this year.
It might be just because football is such a different sport. Like when you mentioned Sweet 16, that makes me think about Mark Few at Gonzaga. They didn't make it this year, ironically, but they make the Sweet 16 about every year. No national championships, but I think he has one of the safest jobs in the country now. If Sark couldn't make it over the hump in football and win a national championship at a program like Texas, I think that could be a different story, honestly.
Let's do one big thing on the worst team right now, worst program right now in the SEC, and just squeeze in a little bit of Mississippi State, shall we?
One big thing for Mississippi State in 2025 is, to me, the goal for Mississippi State in 2025. Can you avoid being the worst team in the SEC? That would be a huge improvement for Jeff Lebby and his team. They were dreadful last year. I'm expecting Mississippi State to be picked by the media to finish last in the SEC. They do have a couple of things going for them. Number one, Jeff Lebby is still a great play caller. That has not changed. I don't know if he's a good head coach, but he can call an offense. That Josh Heupel offense, remember Lebby was Heupel's offensive coordinator back at UCF. He took the Mississippi State job coming from Oklahoma, where he was the OC under Brent Venables. Last year, year one, dreadful. They bottomed out. He also lost his quarterback early on. Blake Shapen, the former Baylor QB, injured 4 games into the year for the rest of the season, and they just never recovered. The defense was absolutely atrocious, literally one of the worst in the country. In fact, only UMass and Eastern Kentucky scored less than 30 points against Mississippi State before their 26-14 loss to Ole Miss at the end of the season, where Ole Miss just had that game in complete control. And it's the Egg Bowl. It's a weird game. We know this. So they have added in the portal. They've added a ton of wide receivers from Georgia. Anthony Evans comes over. Aiden Williams from Ole Miss comes over. Brennan Thompson from Oklahoma, who Jeff Lebby used to coach, comes over. They're going to get opportunities. All of these guys are looking for a breakout year. None of them have proven anything yet in college football, but these are talented guys that are going to have a high volume of opportunity in this Jeff Lebby offense. And then defensively, there is so much room for improvement. I would say there is nowhere but up. Jalen Smith, former Tennessee linebacker, transferred over to Mississippi State. I imagine he's going to rack up some tackles this year. Hard to imagine Mississippi State gets any worse. Hard to imagine Mississippi State gets to a bowl game, and that would be a smashing success for Jeff Lebby in year 2.
It's by far and away the lowest projected win total or over-under of any SEC team. It's 3.5 for Mississippi State. We'll see if they can't dig out of the basement. That's the biggest question that they have to answer. And I know I asked Dawn yesterday if Hugh Freeze is the most likely SEC coach to be fired. I think either she or Brent brought up Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. They have a standard too, and they're falling well short of their standard. We'll do the other 3 SEC teams that are speaking today at SEC Media Days a little later on in the show. We have the dumbest thing in sports this week next. Do we have things to give away?
I don't believe so. We will check, but I don't believe so.
Well, why don't you check while I tell people that 3HL's SEC Media Days coverage down in Atlanta is made possible by Brian's Motorsports and Medical House Calls. You can tune in for the rest of the week as they broadcast live from SEC Media Days and hear all the latest SEC news during 4 days of special interviews and conversations that you just won't get anywhere else. They had the entire Tennessee contingent on yesterday. I know Greg Sankey is on 3HL today. And as I mentioned, you can go to 1045thezone.com/events for more information and a schedule of interviews. Nobody filled the Nebulous prize bucket?
They actually did. They did their jobs today.
No, we love to see that.
The dumbest thing in sports for the chance to win 2 tickets to see the Sounds host Charlotte next Wednesday and another family 4-pack of tickets to the Williamson County Fair.
Oh, okay. Williamson County Fair is a big draw. I know a lot of people. I've never been. I know a lot of people enjoy it. Have you gone?
I went when I was in middle school and stuff. It's a good time.
Okay. Well, if you want a family 4-pack to the Williamson County Fair as well as 2 tickets to an upcoming Nashville Sound game, 615-737-1045. I said sound. Nashville Sounds game. 615-737-1045 is the number. Call in and give us the dumbest thing in sports this week. We'll give you ours next. Lake lovers, listen up. Tennessee National Lakefront Resort, Golf, and Marina Community is releasing a brand new phase of lake lots. One day only, Saturday, July 26th. You can get a cottage package with a boat slip from $359,900, a 1.5-acre lake lot with a covered boat slip from just $99,900. Move-in ready homes with free upgraded outdoor kitchen for $30,000 off. Private golf cart access to a new marina and resort, 10 miles of walking trails, 3.5 miles of shoreline, a brand new 26,000 square foot clubhouse, waterfront concerts, pickleball, pools, on-site coffee shop, and much more. Play on the lake or simply relax at the Waterfront Restaurant just over 20 minutes from Knoxville, Tennessee. Financing is available, so celebrate the lake life and make memories. This limited property release, Saturday, July 26th. Visit TennesseeNational.com or call 865-408-9992. That's 865-408-9992 to secure your private tour. Memories begin here at Tennessee National.
Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Ross Johnston. SEC Media Days continue today with Mississippi State, Florida, Oklahoma, and Alabama set to speak. 3HL will be interviewing Blake Shapen, Isaac Smith, and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, and you can catch that here on The Zone this afternoon. In the NFL, the Jets made a pair of big-time moves yesterday, locking up wide receiver Garrett Wilson and corner Sauce Gardner to long-term deals. Wilson reached a 4-year, $130 million extension with the team, and Gardner agreed to a deal worth $120 million over 4 years, making him the highest-paid corner in the NFL. Nashville SC looks to bounce back tonight after a loss to Inter Miami as they take on Columbus at Geodis Park. Kick is set for 7:30 p.m., and you can listen to it right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right. Ross is new around here, and he said he wants to give me, well, he's not new around here. He's been here for months, so one would think that he would listen to the show and know that the 11 o'clock hour on Wednesday starts with the dumbest thing in sports this week open instead of the regular show open. So in the same way that he has decided he is going to give me an on-air grade at the end of the show, marks off for forgetting the dumbest thing in sports this week, which we should do right now. What are you smiling at? Hit the button.
Well, the thing
Hit the button. I don't want to hear your defense. Hit the button.
The board, man. Where do I... yes.
Oh, my God.
I see this thing now.
I know we just said Bert should quit cigarettes, but now I want one.
Don't do it.
Unbelievable. It's just... How many months have you worked on this show in some form or fashion?
Since March. So
Since March.
What is that now?
We do one of these every week since March with you, and you don't know how this works yet?
Well, I know how it works now.
Oh, for God's sakes. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to give us the dumbest thing in sports this week, the best submission, we'll get 2 tickets to a Nashville Sounds game. The Sounds game is when? Do you know that much information?
Next Wednesday, July 23rd.
Next Wednesday, July 23rd, and also 4 tickets, a family 4-pack to the Williamson County Fair. We'll get to your phone calls here in just a second. The dumbest thing in sports this week is RG3. Robert Griffin III is, he's been let go from ESPN for some time now, a period of months. And he has taken to expressing opinions on social media, as he is completely entitled to do. Some of those opinions have been, people are trying to parse what he's trying to accomplish. Is he looking to take a certain kind of political pivot, whether it be right-wing, whether it be left-wing, as opposed to, just operating in the sports space and offering analysis? He seems to like to put his own inflection and flair on these things. He has been criticized from people or by people from his own community as to what his actual intentions are. And it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, whatever your race, ethnicity, creed, religion is. What Robert Griffin III did over the weekend was very wrong. Angel Reese is going to be the new WNBA video game 2K26 WNBA cover athlete. And whatever, you can agree with that, you can disagree with that. I don't much care about people's opinions on Angel Reese. What I do care is that Robert Griffin III amplified an incredibly racially charged message where Angel Reese is on the cover of the WNBA video game and some hateful, hideous, mouth-breathing lowlife swapped her picture out for a monkey. Obvious racial connotations there. This message, this picture, this image is sent to Robert Griffin III on Twitter, and he quote tweets it. Not only does he quote tweet it, he amplifies it. And the message that he shares is, it just seems so tone deaf on all matter of fronts. No matter how you feel about these situations, you understand that the image is wrong and that Robert Griffin III should not be continuing to share that image to his hundreds of thousands of followers that he's had since he was a high-level college football player. I don't want to read the whole thing. It's way too long. It's frankly unintelligent, and I think it's misplaced. Shaq is on his podcast talking about he's going to punch Robert Griffin III in the face if he ever does something like this again. People have been very, very critical of it. Like I said, you can seek the message from Robert Griffin III out yourself if you want to, but just the act alone of knowing that that is not something that should be shared, should be amplified, should be encouraged because you have hundreds of thousands of followers and you are going to give that person an additional platform beyond what they might have been able to pick up on their own. RG3 is the dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Ross, what's your dumbest thing in sports?
My dumbest thing in sports happened yesterday at SEC Media Days, where Greg Sankey introduced Steve Sarkisian, the Texas head football coach, to the podium for his press conference, and what ensued was the Texas A&M fight song instead of the Texas fight song, and obviously that is a no. So not a good look on whoever was running the operations there at SEC Media Day.
So I wouldn't pretend to know either school's fight song because I saw the video and or one of the videos. I don't know how many videos were actually produced, but the one that made it onto my timeline didn't give the context that it was the A&M fight song. I'm sure people in Texas picked it up very quickly. But that's as minor league a mistake. That is not an SEC caliber mistake. Like SEC's got to be better than that. Whoever running the show has to be better than that. Sark handled it gracefully. I watched the whole thing, and then he got up there and very quickly talked about what they were doing as a university to honor the Texas flood victims and brushed aside the less important part of the embarrassment of him walking up to the podium with the Texas logo all over behind him and to the sound of the Texas A&M song. It's a dumb thing. It's a very dumb thing. All right, 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Let me know what the dumbest thing in sports this week is, and we will give you 2 tickets to a Nashville Sounds game next Wednesday and a family 4-pack to the Williamson County Fair. Let's start with about Peyton.
Hey, good morning, Buck.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just scrolling through ESPN app last night, clicked on the college football section, hit the news button, and they put out a list of the best head coaches in the NCAA. And they did one where it's like 1 through 4 years, 1 through 7. And then the one that I particularly take issue with is the 1 through 3. I'll just give you the top 10, and I'll tell you my reasoning. That's okay. Number 1 is Rhett Lashley, SMU. 2, Kurt Signetti, Indiana. 3, G.J. Kine, Texas State. John Summerall, Tulane. Dan Lanning, Marcus Freeman, Mike Elko. Louisiana head coach Fran Brown, and South Alabama. My issue with this list is Marcus Freeman being 6. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I could be biased, but he beat the teetotal hell out of Indiana in South Bend. SMU got killed in the college football playoff. Mind you, it was, there was definitely a talent discrepancy there. Dan Lanning, I guess you probably could make a case for being number 1, but according to me, it should either be Marcus Freeman 1, Dan Lanning 2, or vice versa. That's my dumbest thing in sports.
Well, it sounds subjective, and I get your case for Marcus Freeman being too low. I think a coach that just competed in the national championship game should also be higher than 6. But I think those things are nitpicking. And everybody's going to have their own opinion based on where their fan allegiances lie. But if you think that's the dumbest thing in sports, Peyton, that is absolutely your opinion. Remember to stay on hold, by the way, for the opportunity to win those tickets. How about Anthony next?
Hey, guys. My dumbest thing in sports, I'm watching the home run derby. I'm all excited. I sat down, and then out comes Pat McAfee and his little sidekick doing WWE introductions for all the batters. with all the talent, with all the people that we could have had. I mean, King Griffey Jr. was there. Chipper Jones was there. They got a wrestler that coming out presenting a home run derby trophy. When, King Griffey Jr. or Chipper Jones, either one, would have been a way better person to come out to hand the trophy off. Absolutely the dumbest thing in sports. I had to change the channel and come back after he was done to start watching.
I appreciate the call.
That's my dumbest thing.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. There's going to be McAfee fatigue. ESPN is doing this thing where they're paying these guys at the very, very top, whether it's Greenberg, guys and gals, Greenberg, McAfee, Stephen A., $20 million a year. They're gutting their middle class of talent, and they're putting all their resources into the biggest personalities that they've got. And Pat McAfee is one of the biggest personalities that they've got. He's one of the most polarizing. And baseball, it was baseball's decision to have him there because baseball is trying to get a new audience. I don't want to say that they don't care about the existing audience, but they know that they have you. They know that if you're tuning in for the Home Run Derby just to watch the Home Run Derby, then they don't have to worry about getting your eyeballs. They want to try and get into McAfee's demographic, which is younger and different and probably not interested in baseball, and they're trying to combine a bunch of different entertaining elements. I get it from a marketing standpoint, but I'm not a diehard baseball guy. I'm sure there are plenty of people who share that exact same opinion by Anthony. I know plenty of people are getting, anytime you're that much in the public, like even some of the best people I know, I started to see people being, and social media is not a real place, so you try not to get too caught up in it, but like Jelly Roll, right? Jelly Roll has hit a new level of fandom. He's a local guy. We obviously support him. He's a great friend of mine, not just because he's a listener to the show, but because I've known him for several years at this point. I've seen him come up throughout the course of this, and it's really, really cool to see one of my friends make it. And anytime you are that public for an extended period of time, people will start to get fatigued. It happens to a lot of people, even the best human beings that you know, and he is one of them. So that it's happening to McAfee is not surprising at all because they're not going to stop that. He's just going to keep popping up in all these different places, no matter how much it annoys people, because he's got a huge audience. Alvin is next.
Listener to the show, but because I
don't want to hear me in the background, Alvin.
At this point, I've seen him come up throughout the course of this, and it's really,
that's a
really
disqualifying
cool
thing. I don't want to do that. You gotta know the rules. Eli. Hopefully Eli has his radio turned down and is listening via the phone. What do you got, Eli?
Gentlemen, and no Lucas. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. My dumbest thing in sports would be the notorious Conor McGregor sending unsolicited Richard pics to Instagram models. And get this, Buck, not just was it an unsolicited Richard pic, it was him full body in a mirror with a weight attached by a string. Then she went and blasted him on Twitter for everybody on their timeline just to get another unsolicited Richard pic from Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to debate the merits of sending people Richard pics, right?
I think Eli's going to that Sounds game.
It's pretty tough. If that's the way that the entirety of the world finds out that you're uncircumcised, that's a tough scene.
I also just don't know how that filters into everyone's Twitter algorithm because it got onto mine.
It was everywhere.
I was not expecting that.
Well, I think it covers enough of a spectrum, right? You get the TMZ people, you get the people that are searching for Instagram thoughts, not thoughts as in thoughts in your brain, but THOTS. People that are searching social media for Instagram models. You get the sports fans because Conor McGregor is obviously an outsized sports figure beyond just being a pop culture figure. So I think it covers enough bases that plenty of people had that end up in their algorithm. Not the uncensored Richard picks, thank God.
Oh, it certainly covered enough.
You
got to get out of this segment.
That would be tough. That would be tough. I can't think of a word. Also, maybe just as a male society, we can stop the unsolicited sending of Richard picks. There's not that much that's attractive about the male anatomy that somebody's just going to welcome that into their phone or their Snapchat inbox or anything else. Maybe make sure the Richard picks are solicited first and foremost.
Just make sure she's fine with it, or he, I guess. That's how you swing.
Whatever you roll. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's take a few more of these before we move on and do some quarterback rankings because those are out there, and I want to talk about it within the context of Cam Ward. How about Andrew next?
Hello, y'all hear me?
Yes.
How y'all doing today?
Good.
My dumbest thing in sports is on a St. Brown podcast. I'm around St. Brown's father said the key to raising professional athletes is to have kids with a black woman instead of a white woman.
Yeah, I did hear that clip.
MRL St. Brown's father said the key to raising professional athletes is to have a kid with a black woman instead of a white woman.
Yes, you mentioned that.
And he even said, I'm black, mama's white. Now I've done stepped in it once. You can't keep stepping in it. And that's my dumbest thing in sports.
Okay, very good. Wanted to make sure he repeated it just in case we didn't hear it. The clip is all right. So the clip's problematic for a couple of reasons. You know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I saw it. On the feed.
The St. Brown brothers, Equanimous and Amon Ra, they have a podcast. They interviewed their father. Their father is a former world-renowned.
It's like Mr. America. Or something.
It's like Mr. Olympian or something like that. He's like a very famous strength trainer and competed in competitions. I don't remember what the exact title is, but he is who is responsible for training them. They credit him for preparing them physically, mentally, emotionally for being professional athletes, and that's fine. They started to, he basically said that he believes in breeding is his point, and that what Andrew was trying to say there is the quote from Amon-Ra St. Brown's father, who I believe is just named John. He named his sons Equanimous and Amon-Ra, but his name is John. Maybe John was a little too boring for him, so he thought he'd spice it up for the rest of the family. John Brown's quote was, "I've already stepped on it," talking about basically the bloodline once because mom's white, which I'm sure mom did not appreciate. Beyond the people that are going to do the racial whataboutism, like, can you imagine if a white guy said that? Like, we don't got to do that. That's not who said it, all right? We don't have to do the whataboutism. It's problematic beyond just it being. Now, maybe he genuinely believes that, and I'm sure there are plenty of people. I think Ocho Cinco's talked about believing in breeding for the purposes of creating the next generation of Chad Johnson athletes or whatever. But I don't know. Those people are out there. I've never raised professional athletes, so what the hell do I know about it? I mean, there's an entire industry devoted to dog breeding that seems to think the exact same thing. So if you don't have a problem with the golden retriever bloodline type of conversation, I don't know. It seemed a ridiculous thing to say out loud, but he had two sons make it to the NFL. So the only person I feel bad for in this situation is the mother.
Yes, that's a household issue. But isn't he living proof that that's not necessarily the case? He has two sons that made the NFL, and he had them with a white woman.
Yeah, his case is not a great one because there are plenty of athletic white people out there, plenty of people who have competed at a high level, whether it's soccer, track, football, basketball. Like, I don't think that athleticism is specific to one race or another. If two people are highly athletic, they have a child, and the child ends up being athletic as a result. But
no, he's saying that guys like you and I are screwed.
Well, guys like you and I are screwed, but not because of breeding.
No, I mean just the skin tone. I think we're screwed.
Oh, well, I'm Arab. What's your excuse?
I didn't. It's the family I was born in. Kind of just got put in here.
Yeah, I don't imagine that you and I are going to be able to advance this conversation very much. That's okay. All right, who wins the tickets? We've got. Oh, it's probably. It's got
to be Eli.
It's probably Eli, right?
Very good submission.
Yeah, Eli's submission was a good one. All right, so Eli will get the Sounds tickets and a family 4-pack to the Williamson County Fair. You can call us every week at 11 o'clock and submit your dumbest thing in sports this week. The quarterback rankings, according to ESPN, are out. How likely is it that Cam Ward appears in the 2026 rankings? We'll talk about it next. Welcome back to the show. Fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, the best hot chicken in the world. Congratulations to Eli, who won the tickets to the Sounds game and to the Williamson County Fair. Speaking of that, before we talk about these ESPN Top 10 quarterback rankings that will shock no one that Will Levis nor Cam Ward are featured in the Top 10 quarterback rankings, but I want to talk about it within the context of what would it take, or is there a percentage chance that Cam Ward could be in these rankings come next year, right after I tell you that the Williamson County Fair is right around the corner, the 21st annual Williamson County Fair. 9 days of fun, rides, food, and family entertainment, August 1st through the 9th, and your chance to win tickets is right here on 104.5 The Zone. We just gave you an opportunity to win some. We will continue to do so all week long. To win or sign up online now at 1045thezone.com/contests. All right. Training camp is what? 6 days, 7 days? Just about a week from the first practice on the field. They'll report on Tuesday, next Tuesday, and practice will begin next Wednesday. And that, by the way, is when the show will start being out at training camp every day that training camp is there. You guys need to send me some submissions on players that you want to hear from. Just for context, we have already interviewed so far this offseason Chika Okonkwo, Arden Key, Tajay Spears, Cody Barton. Am I forgetting anybody? I think that's the list of the players that we did during the offseason program. So, I mean, theoretically, if you wanted to hear from those guys again, we could do that. But we would like a little variety if you're not opposed to that. So send me submissions that are not those four players, and we will do our best to make sure that those people make appearances on the show. Remember that the Titans do have joint training camp practices in Tampa and in Atlanta this year as well, which will be interesting. Last time we were in Tampa, Tom Brady was the quarterback still of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This time, Baker Mayfield. Last time we were down in Tampa for joint training camp practices, I can't remember which cornerback got punched in the face by Antonio Brown, but there was a very famous picture taken by our buddy George Walker, who was formerly at USA Today. Now I believe George is at Getty Images of, man, what corner was it? I want to say it was a number 35, but Antonio Brown got into it.
Chris Jackson.
Was Chris Jackson 35?
Yes, I just looked it up.
Did you find the picture? The picture is cinema. I mean, Antonio Brown is not somebody you would probably want to scrap with, even though he's not the biggest guy in the world. Chris Jackson got the worst of that.
Looks like Chris Jackson took a left hook to the jaw with no helmet on either. So
that is correct.
And Brown had his helmet on, so that's
smart. Antonio Brown. Many people accusing him of not knowing what the hell's going on. At least he knows enough to keep his helmet on during a training camp fight.
That was right before the season leading up to the incident, I guess.
That was the training camp prior to him having a meltdown in the end zone of the Jets on the road, a Bucs game at the Jets, where he's just, he's strutting through the end zone, whipping his shirt off, waving around his head, and telling Tom Brady that he was done at that point in time. So, yeah, Chris Jackson got the worst of that. Titans legend.
So maybe he was kind of teetering in training camp a little bit already.
Buddy, I think he's been teetering for years.
Since Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I don't know that there is one hit more commonly associated with head trauma than Vontaze Burfict and Antonio Brown. Vontaze Burfict, man, he did that to a couple of different players. Antonio Brown also kicked a punter in the face. So
I think he's
got his own record there as far as head trauma goes.
Wasn't that like his first NFL game too, or like one of them? I think.
I want to say it was a punt return. It had to have been early in his career. It was
against the Browns, and he was trying to hurdle. I think it was Spencer Lanning was the punter, and I think he said he just got like stuck in midair, didn't know what to do, so
foot to the face,
curb stomped
for that poor punter. Either way. So the quarterback rankings, and Robert, I know, was going to have an issue with this, which is why we were saving it for later in the week. He's dealing with bronchitis, so we'll see if he's back next week when Lucas gets back from Brazil. But the quarterback rankings, obviously Patrick Mahomes has won. Now, should that be obvious, given that Patrick Mahomes just got his ass whipped in the Super Bowl and was not a match for the Philadelphia Eagles defense?
I would say no, but that is because I'm not a quarterback wins guy. And I think the last 2 years, obviously, like the thing that matters most is the play on the field, but I think he has looked bad is not the right word, but just less superhuman the last couple of years.
Yeah, they have found a way to tamp down the explosive plays, the explosive passing plays in the Chiefs' offense. And that was one of the things that made Patrick Mahomes, and is, I don't doubt that he's still capable of that. Defenses are just playing him better. Now, 2 is Josh Allen, who I believe to be more talented, more physically gifted than Patrick Mahomes is, but I do think that Patrick Mahomes is a better player at the quarterback position than Josh Allen. My issue is when we get to 3 and 4. Joe Burrow is ranked above Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is 4, Joe Burrow is 3. All 4 of those, by the way, AFC quarterbacks.
It's tough to argue Lamar is worse than 2, honestly, right now.
Lamar is the best quarterback in football right now. I don't think that's, I mean, clearly it's disputable because ESPN is disputing it, but I am also not a QB wins guy.
I think the only thing that's undisputable is those 4, like those top 4.
They are the 4 best quarterbacks in the sport. I know that Jalen Hurts just won the Super Bowl and that he should be given more credit than he is getting and was the orchestrator of one of the most effective offenses in football, even though the passing game was not the best. Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl champion quarterback, is 9th here. 9th. Is a tough look. Below Jared Goff, I don't think he's a worse player at the position than Jared Goff is. Justin Herbert, if not for a world, and I've said this many times, if not for a world where Trevor Lawrence existed, Justin Herbert would be the most disappointing player in professional football. I'm not going to do the whole Emmanuel Acho, he's a social media quarterback thing, but I don't agree with much that Emmanuel Acho says, and it doesn't seem that anybody else
on TV anymore. So.
He might be back. He says too many loud, ridiculous things to not pop up somewhere again.
You remember a few weeks ago when he tweeted that he just talking about the NBA legacy metric, and KD responded to it. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
That's about Emmanuel Acho summed up in one show right there.
Yeah, and the fact that is the thing he's most famous for, as opposed to, his, what was he doing during the pandemic? Uncomfortable conversations with a black man, which I thought were very thoughtful and very well put together. I don't doubt that he's intelligent. I just doubt that he's utilizing his abilities for the wrong reasons.
It's just like at some point it's a little much for a sports host, TV host.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't, easy for me to lob criticism, and full disclosure, I do radio for Fox Sports Radio on a regular basis. So that is something that maybe I shouldn't be taking Emmanuel Acho out that way, even though he doesn't technically still work for the network. But I think that he's not that good. I just don't think he's good at getting his point across in a way that would inform, educate, or entertain the audience. But that's neither here nor there. His point, though, about Justin Herbert being a social media quarterback. Justin Herbert, to me, is what you want, what you're trying to manifest, something greater than he actually is. He has not accomplished anything. He is a talented player, and this is about what he projects to do. And maybe year 2 under Harbaugh, he'll finally live up to that pedigree. But he's like Trevor Lawrence. He's on a second contract, and he's underwhelmed. He's been better than Trevor Lawrence has. To be sure, Trevor Lawrence is not in this top 10 list, nor is C.J. Stroud. Matt Stafford is 6. Jaden Daniels is 5. I need a bigger sample size of Jaden Daniels before I'm comfortable putting him ahead of as the 5th best quarterback in football. I think that's a bit premature. But Lamar Jackson to me is the best quarterback. He's the best quarterback. He is the person. The NFL and their ability to underestimate Lamar Jackson for as long as he's been in the league is insane to me. He was not going to be a first-round pick until the Ravens traded back up into the first round to get him after picking Hayden Hurst at like 18. He was not somebody that the NFL community seemed to want while he was renegotiating his contract, so much so that teams like the Falcons haven't earned any right to stand on their soapbox and say, yeah, Lamar Jackson, not for us. In what world? Lamar Jackson, to me, was the best player at the most important position in football last year. Josh Allen is the MVP. I thought that was wrong. I don't have an MVP vote, so my opinion doesn't count for much here. But Lamar Jackson is more physically gifted than the other two. Josh Allen is bigger and is also physically gifted. Mahomes, I would argue, is the least gifted of the top 3, even though Joe Burrow is technically in the top 3 there. Joe Burrow has great attributes, great skill, but I cannot in good conscience rank him above Lamar Jackson, and I cannot in good conscience rank Lamar Jackson below Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. It's not about their accomplishments. Their resume matters, of course, that Patrick Mahomes has 3 Super Bowls and the rest of them don't have any. Yeah, Pat gets points for that, and that Pat has been spectacular and excellent and came up short because he had I don't think because of him, but because he had a worse team. Like, he was just surrounded by an appreciably lesser roster than was Jalen Hurts, and you saw him get swamped. The best quarterback in the world is not good enough to overcome the better team. Lamar Jackson does so many things at a high level, and in that year 1 with Todd Monken and Derrick Henry, I only think that's going to get better. Lamar Jackson should have been the most valuable player last year. That's as big an incorrect vote, or a vote that the voting membership got wrong, as I can remember in a long time. Josh Allen is also great. Lamar Jackson is better. And I think Lamar's more talented, has more to give in an offense, has more versatility, and is more of a threat than either of the other two.
The thing that's tough about this, and I mean, this is kind of how rankings are. They're tough in general, and it's also not the best football argument. But to think that, like, Joe Burrow would be ranked 4th on this is just crazy to me. And, like, I get what your point about Mahomes. I agree with everything you said about him, but I don't think you can watch football last year and say that just based off last year, Patrick Mahomes was better than Joe Burrow. And like you said, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Now, he obviously played better in the playoffs until the Super Bowl, but, I mean...
But the entire regular season, he was the 4th of those 4.
Yes.
So this is no longer a meritocracy. This is a career resume achievement, or is this actually who we think these players are going to be in 2025? Because Patrick Mahomes, he's not going to have a better offensive line than he did last year. That's the thing that crushed him in the Super Bowl. Yeah, he can get back to the Super Bowl. He's an incredibly talented player. But don't tell me that Patrick Mahomes was the best quarterback in football last year. He simply, factually, was not. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'll get back to SEC Media Day coverage. One big thing for SEC teams. Lucas has left a couple of those for us to do. And as we cycle through the rest of the SEC Media Day's participants today, we'll give you those one big things coming up next. Financial insecurity is something that everybody has dealt with in some point in their lives. Whether you're currently experiencing it or you found yourself on the other side of it, you know how much stress it can cause. That's why Trajan Wealth is here to help you. You need to ensure that your retirement is the ultimate summer vacation, as we are in the midst of the summer months. So call Trajan Wealth today, especially while we are still in the month of July, having just celebrated Independence Day. It is also so important to consider how big a role that financial independence plays in all of our lives. And that's exactly what Trajan Wealth is there to help you accomplish. Trajan Wealth CEO Jeff Jr. fully appreciates that as a veteran himself, the importance of true independence. He founded Trajan Wealth as an independent firm, allowing fiduciary advisors the ability to customize a portfolio to meet your unique goals and needs. Call Trajan Wealth today to discuss options for achieving financial independence and get that off your back. Get back to sleeping correctly again, sleeping right, and not having to think about all the different things that can burden you regarding your financial status. 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. SEC Media Days continues on. You've got Florida, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Mississippi State participating today. We have one big thing for each of the programs that are speaking each day that SEC Media Days continues. 3HL is going to continue their great coverage down there in Atlanta, making it all happen. Florida football last year struggled. I don't think anybody would characterize it as anything else. Billy Napier is in a pretty unique situation where I think a lot of people wouldn't be surprised to see Billy Napier not finish out the season, depending on how it goes. But you also have the promise of quarterback DJ Lagway, and given Billy Napier's background, how much can Billy Napier salvage his reputation as the Florida football coach by getting the best out of DJ Lagway and turning this into something that's way more viable in 2025. Let's hear one big thing on the Florida football team.
One big thing for Florida football in 2025 is show me. Credit to Billy Napier. He was the most pre-fired coach in America a year ago, had the toughest schedule in America, and somehow was able to survive. Won 8 games, including the bowl game, and have some momentum going into this year, obviously surrounding the 5-star quarterback, DJ Lagway. By the way, Buck, who is DJ Lagway's backup quarterback in Gainesville? Hint, he used to be a Tennessee quarterback. Harrison Bailey, you idiot. DJ Lagway showed some great glimpses last year. I think this kid's going to be the real deal, and I'm especially confident in Lagway because of what he has in front of him. Florida returns an offensive line that is going to be among the best in the league. They've got an All-American center coming back in Jake Slaughter. They've got a left tackle that has started 26 games. They've got a right guard that has started 25 games. Extremely experienced group and a good young pass-catching core that are going to have an opportunity to kind of break out this year, that are going to be really explosive this year with a pair of tailbacks that are a physical and explosive duo in Jaden Baugh and Jacoby Jackson. And this defense is somewhat deep as well. They return a lot of talent, as well as one of the deepest linebacker cores in the entire SEC. The problem for Florida is, again, the schedule. It's the exact same as last year with home and away just flipped around. Instead of hosting Miami, you go to Miami. You have to go to LSU, to Texas A&M, to Ole Miss. You do get Tennessee at home there towards the end of the season. You get Texas at home. So you do get some of your best teams in the swamp, but no doubt the schedule remains one of the most brutal in the nation. So now 8 wins is not going to be good enough to keep Billy Napier's job, in my opinion. I think you're looking at a season for Florida where you're going to have to take a pretty big jump to that 9 to 10 win range at minimum for the fan base to feel okay about where things are going. We've talked to Josh Pate about this. He's a big believer in what Billy Napier and his staff are doing, how they're trying to build this program. And I agree that early on in his tenure, a lot of things that held back Florida football were not Billy Napier's fault. The NIL setup was not positioning Florida for success. It's gotten a lot better since then, but now, Napier, you've got the team, you've got the quarterback. Schedule's tough, but still, you got to show us.
He's so right. I wouldn't have known Harrison Bailey was the backup quarterback.
I saw a little pause in the audio, so I was like, I need to cut that down a little bit, but I'm glad I didn't cut it out because that was funny.
You know, he gave me an opportunity. To his credit, he gave me a window there to answer the question, but zero by me. The audience on Zone TV saw my face when he from the beyond asked me that question recording these last week. Harrison Bailey, that's funny, the backup quarterback of the Florida Gators. So, with this going on, Billy Napier is a 4th-year head coach. He's still getting support from a lot of people involved with the program. I know that several people have come out, former players have come out. Chris Doering talked about this when he was on with us, former Florida wide receiver, now SEC Network analyst, and said that he thinks that Florida football is still in a good space. It's just tough for me, looking at their schedule, to see a world in which Florida survives, or rather, Billy Napier survives this coming college football season. DJ Lagway is the most important thing here. But is that really enough? Because DJ Lagway deserves as much credit for starting the turnaround as much as anything. It's a big, big year for both of them. And how much credit you want to give to the coach for the development of the quarterback versus how much credit you want to give the quarterback for getting through adversity and becoming the best version of himself. Those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. They obviously have to work in concert with one another for Florida to be able to achieve at a higher level. But I don't know. That's Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, Billy Napier at Florida. Those are the three names that, and Mark Stoops at Kentucky. Mark Stoops coming off a bat, and he's reset the standard for the program, and he's falling short of his own standard, and Kentucky football fans are not happy now that they actually have reason to care about their football program after the Joker Phillips debacle. So those four names come up the most often as to who is going to be the first coach fired in the SEC. Maybe it's not Billy Napier, but he would have to really, really make some strides here. And I think 4 years is enough to make that kind of determination. All right, we're going to do Oklahoma next.
We can do Oklahoma.
One big thing on the Oklahoma football program, year 2 in the SEC.
One big thing for Oklahoma football under Brent Venables in 2025 is to show that 2024 does not define the trajectory of this football program, that was a fluke, that was a blip in the radar, because it looked like Oklahoma football was headed in the right direction after a year 2 jump from 6 to 10 wins, and then came 2024 in the first year in the SEC. Oklahoma's wide receiver core, a rash of injuries and underperformance. Oklahoma's offensive line massively struggled. Oklahoma's defense was not up to par for Brent Venables, who in his career has been one of the best defensive minds in all of college football. But most importantly, your 5-star quarterback, Jackson Arnold, fell flat on his face, lost his starting job pretty much after the first SEC game of the season, that loss at home against Tennessee. So they go into the portal. They bring in the most sought-after quarterback in the portal, in John Mateer out of Washington State, and they bring in Cal running back Jaden Ott, who would be an all-conference player in almost any other conference in the country. They made a lot of moves. They are deeper this year than they were last year. Their ceiling figures to be higher at quarterback this year than it was last year, but they got to show it. And that's a lot of pressure on John Mateer, who is being asked to come in and help revive this tenure under Brent Venables, because if Oklahoma goes down the path of yet another 6-win season, then it's hard to imagine Brent Venables having a very long leash, even though he just recently got an extension earlier in the offseason. But Oklahoma has an opportunity this year with a talented roster to turn the tide from what they did last year. The problem is their schedule is very unforgiving. They do have to deal with Michigan at home in week 2, Auburn at home in week 4. Then, of course, in week 6, it's the Red River Shootout. And that's going to be kind of the hinge point on what determines Oklahoma's season as a success, as an average season, or as a failure. Later on in the year, they got to go to South Carolina, host Ole Miss, go to Tennessee, go to Alabama, and finish the year against LSU. So, talented team, opportunity to turn things around, get back to those heights of 10 wins 2 years ago, but tough schedule to do it. And as always, we know the challenge of putting a team together where a lot of your major parts and pieces come in via the transfer portal.
It's one big thing on Oklahoma football heading into 2025. Jackson Arnold, now transferred to Auburn, obviously he was on several different platforms yesterday, but I believe this was on the SEC network where he talked about him getting benched at Oklahoma was him hitting rock bottom, and that he's poised or setting himself up to write a much different story this year at Auburn. The direction of both of those programs is going to be worth following along throughout the course of the season. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the SEC each and every year, but plenty of intrigue now with all, especially guys that transfer within the conference, and how, Jackson Arnold's success or failure, rather, at Oklahoma will be measured against whatever he's able to accomplish at Auburn. Brent Venables, he's got to get it right. That program in the Big 12 is accustomed to winning at a much higher rate. And the new reality of them in the SEC, I don't think is going to be a pleasant experience.
I really like John Mateer, so I'm excited to see, because, Venables is a defensive guy. I'm excited to see that pairing go to work.
A quarterback that's built like a fullback and an absolute screaming, raving madman on the sidelines in Brent Venables. He's been like that since Clemson.
He just jumps all over the place.
He really is he's absolutely unhinged. It's a little too much for me, but if he's passionate, that's
he might do some smelling salts before each drive or something.
I'm certain that there is something involved there, not to recklessly speculate. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'll get back to phone calls. CBS Sports ranked Brian Callahan as the worst coach in the NFL. We'll talk about it next.
Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Ross Johnston. SEC Media Days continue today with Mississippi State, Florida, Oklahoma, and Alabama set to speak. 3HL will be interviewing Blake Shapen, Isaac Smith, and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, and you can catch that here on The Zone this afternoon. In the NFL, the Jets made a pair of big-time moves yesterday, locking up wide receiver Garrett Wilson and corner Sauce Gardner to long-term deals. Wilson reached a 4-year, $130 million extension with the team, and Gardner agreed to a 4-year, $120 million deal, making him the highest-paid cornerback in the NFL. Nashville SC looks to bounce back tonight after a loss to Inter Miami as they take on Columbus at Geodis Park. Kick is set for 7:30 p.m., and you can listen to it right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Coming off a 3-14 season, not many people are going to be willing to give the Tennessee Titans their flowers. Certainly, they don't deserve flowers until they go out there and earn them. But this has been an offseason where many things about the current roster, the organization, the coaching staff, really everything but the front office structure has been questioned. And that's really only because they were able to land what most people viewed as the top general manager candidate available on the market in Mike Borgonzi. Welcome back to the final hour of the show. We are going to talk about the Titans. We'll get to one big thing on Alabama football with SEC Media Days, them being involved at the podium today. We've got that involved for you later. And also a clip from John Gruden's podcast where a former Miami quarterback is giving many, many praises to Cam Ward. But there's not a lot of praise for Brian Callahan. Nor should there be. I think if you're being reasonable based on what this football team was in his first year and how everything top to bottom on the roster and seemingly, at least in year one of the coaching staff, got worse from its predecessors. The scoring offense was up slightly, but it's tough to be any worse than, 17.3 and 17.5 points per game in the last 2 years of Mike Vrabel. They were hideous. Titans were scoring just a little over 18 points per game last year, so not a drastic improvement. The quarterback did a lot to nuke them, but that quarterback was somebody that the head coach had publicly talked about many times over, that he was excited to work with, and not only was he not able to maximize Will Levis got worse year over year from his rookie season. And a lot of people put that on Will, understandably so. His decision-making was the reason that they were in so many bad spots. But when you hire a coach whose background is specifically tailored to the most important position and the player that you spend $228 million around to build around craters as badly as it did, well, it's at least fair to question what is now the biggest black mark on Brian Callahan's quarterback resume, where that was the thing that was cited when he was hired. Peyton Manning, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr. Who else am I forgetting on that list? Joe Burrow, of course, famously. All high-level quarterbacks. They may have been high-level with or without Brian Callahan, but all four have credited Brian Callahan for helping them in their different stages of their careers. And they were all at different stages of their careers when Callahan was working with them either as a quality control coach or a quarterback's coach or as an offensive coordinator as he made his way through his NFL coaching journey. CBS Sports ranked Brian Callahan as the worst coach in the NFL heading into the season. And the explanation is not substantive enough for me to get where their argument is coming from. I'll just read you the quick blurb. We shouldn't fault Callahan too much. This is courtesy of, let me find the author, Cody Benjamin. I'm not familiar with Cody Benjamin, but that's fine. We shouldn't fault Callahan too much for inheriting an overhauled roster, but after he was unable to corral quarterback Will Levis's riskiest tendencies, there's a lot riding on Cam Ward essentially controlling himself as Tennessee's new face of the franchise. So What does that have to do with Brian Callahan? Well, the biggest thing that I disagree with in that is that Callahan inherited too much of that roster because they turned a ton of that roster over. Rand Carthon was the person whose professional head rolled for that roster construction. But L'Jarius Sneed and Calvin Ridley and Lloyd Cushenberry and Kenneth Murray, Cheeto Awuzie, there are players who they signed in that first offseason under Callahan and Carthon that aren't even here anymore. Cheeto and Kenneth Murray are already gone. I have no idea what L'Jarius Sneed is going to be. I don't think that he inherited Will Levis, that's true. He inherited one of the worst rosters in football, that's true. But they turned over a good bit of it, and they've since turned over more than half of it heading into this season, so they're clearly not satisfied with the current roster construction. Each year that passes with him as the head coach, this is going to be more and more in his image. I don't blame him for inheriting the worst roster in football, even though they didn't finish at the worst roster in football the year before Brian Callahan took that job. Will Levis' first opportunity as a full-time starting quarterback was a disaster, abject disaster. Nobody would put that all on Callahan, even if he is the offensive-minded, quarterback-centric head coach. I don't blame him for Will Levis making bad decisions on the field. Maybe you could argue that Will Levis has made some poor decisions off the field, but I think that's nitpicking. Like, there's plenty of people who, do endorsement deals that maybe their profile was not substantial enough to commit to those, or their body of work as a professional athlete was not enough to, do a nationally televised campaign. We don't have to relitigate the mayonnaise commercials or the Snapchat hack or anything else. Like, that could have happened to anybody. And the biggest thing in talking to people in the aftermath of that wretched season was that, everything we heard about Will Levis throughout the course of the season and in practice and in the meeting rooms checked out perfectly fine. It's just when he got out on the field, they didn't know how to get him to make better decisions. And he's the type of player, it seems, where one bad decision compounds into another, and it's not turn the page to the next play, but it's all interconnected, and he spiraled as a result. If you don't agree with Brian Callahan being discussed as the worst coach in professional football coming into this season, what's the argument to the opposite? The bottom of the rankings, Brian Callahan, Brian Schottenheimer, who's the first-year coach of the Cowboys, Daboll, who's, according to Vegas, most likely to be fired first. Kellen Moore just got there with the Saints. Aaron Glenn just got there with the Jets. Raheem Morris with the Falcons. That underwhelmed based on them feeling like they were a quarterback away. The quarterback situation kind of devolved, and Raheem Morris is getting more blame for that. But Liam Cohen just got that job, and he's ranked 26th. Liam Cohen has a good background as a coordinator, as somebody who works with quarterbacks, a very similar type of resume, style of resume to Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan's just been in the league as a head coach. The question to me is not, I think Brian Callahan's a good coach. I don't know if he's a good head coach. I don't know if he's a good CEO. I know he's somebody who puts a great deal of thought and effort and care and attention into the planning of things. I know he has taken it personally in how poorly they finished, how bereft of leadership they felt, and he's taken some accountability of his own where he felt, and he got feedback to the effect in these exit interviews with players. We've talked about this. He's commented on this before, where he wasn't the coach of the entire team. He was the offense's coach. He needs to be able to manage the entire situation. He also needs to be able to balance calling the offense on top of that, but first and foremost, his duty is to the team. No one's going to blame him for spending as much time as he did trying to get the offense right last year, and it just blowing up in his face worse than anybody, including him, could have possibly imagined. But I take no issue with him being called the worst coach in professional football coming into this season, because he was the coach of the worst team in football last year. And I know the Browns had a similar record. I know that there were at least two teams who hired first-time head coaches in the Raiders and the Patriots, who ironically enough won more games than the Titans did last year, just one more game for both of those teams, but fired their coaches. Had they moved on from Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon after how bad last year was, I wouldn't have taken great issue with it. Even though I like Brian personally, and I think he's well equipped to be an NFL head coach. The question that I do not have the answer to, and that we do not have the answer to collectively, is can he manage the entire thing? And I love that he's motivated to prove people wrong to that effect. I think he's certainly intellectually capable enough to be able to manage all of these things. They have to respect him first and foremost. And it's, I don't come back to this very often because, for obvious reasons, the day that Jeff Simmons took a run at me, right? Because I called him sloppy for swinging at J.C. Latham on the first day of padded practice and training camp last year. And Jeff got upset because his mom sent him a critical tweet that I put out there, and he came running out and, greeted me with some not so kind terms while we were doing the Roger McCreary interview, which, by the way, Roger does not get enough credit for how well he handled that entire...
Roger was excellent.
Excellent. Literally just, dealt with the Jeff meltdown before. He's just chilling on his phone, waiting for the interview to start. Jeff will settle down after a while. Roger McCreary is the low-key... Roger McCreary and Lucas's smile thinking that I'm about to get knocked out by Jeff Simmons, those are the two stars of that actual clip. But it comes back to the entire ordeal that day. The nature of that was I didn't think that the leader of the team, Jeff Simmons, who was stepping into as front-facing a leadership role as he's ever had, where he's going to be the one most scrutinized. No more Derrick Henry, no more Mike Vrabel, no more Ryan Tannehill. It's Jeff Simmons, right? He's the best player on the team. I didn't think that Jeff handled himself well that day, and I've talked to Jeff about this since then, and we've figured it out, and he understands my job, and I understand his job. But I called Jeff sloppy that day for swinging on the first-round pick, and then Brian Callahan not kicking him out of practice. Now, Mike Vrabel is the only head coach that Jeff Simmons had previously had. But anytime Jeff Simmons, who is very passionate, highly competitive, very talkative out there, anytime Jeff or any player would get into a physical confrontation outside of the whistles, they'd get tossed from practice. That was a rule. Because if you're not going to help us get anything accomplished today, go cool off. You don't want to get better today? Go sit in a locker room. We don't need you here. We'll figure it out. You come back the next day if you want to get better. That was the rule. And I very clearly remember Brian Callahan not kicking Jeff Simmons out of practice that day, and that being like one of the first defining moments of Brian Callahan's first year. Like, okay, he's testing you here. Not intentionally, but he's testing you. What are you going to do? They let him stay for the next play. Do you remember what happened on that very next play?
I do not.
Dog pile fight.
I mean, shocker.
Right. But that's Brian Callahan, rookie head coach, going through it. I don't know if he would redo the situation. I don't know if he thought, he'd be able to handle it or Jeff would be able to handle it better or whatever. But there was an immediate fight, a bigger fight, beyond Jeff taking a swing at JC, that tested Brian Callahan's ability to understand his roster and how to properly manage everything. Everything. How can we all collectively get what we set out to accomplish today done if I don't kick you out after a fight, after I trust you here to handle yourself, and you do the thing that's, frankly, a little bit obvious, not even with the results in hand, but football players get into it, especially in the heat of training camp, especially coming off a previously heated moment. That was like one of the first, in front of us, tests of Brian Callahan that I can remember. All these things helped form what was a disastrous first year for him and for many people associated with that organization that I'm sure they're very quick or very happy to put behind them. But not only that, to learn from those mistakes. I think Brian Callahan is fully capable of learning from those mistakes. I think he will be a better coach this year, having gone through the trials and tribulations of last year. Will he be good enough to keep that job? Not a single person can answer that yet. But if you're going to take issue with him being called the worst coach in football, after that first season, I haven't heard a single compelling argument to the opposite.
I think the only argument you could make just for the sake of the list would be to rank all the new coaches this year at the bottom, just since they haven't coached a single game. But yes, as far as the returning head coaches in the league, I don't see how you argue him better than after last season.
So just like everybody else on that roster that was a part of that nightmare 2024, he has to prove himself to Denard Wilson, Nick Holtz, all of those people. Hell, Chad Brinker, who is running the football side of things, but was just as much a part of 2024 as anybody else was. All of these people are going to be under the microscope for everything that they do, especially in year 2, because there is now a number 1 overall pick at quarterback in the mix, and you cannot afford to get him wrong more than anything. He is the most important thing, not Brian Callahan, not Chad Brinker, not L'Jarius Sneed. The only thing that matters about the future of that franchise is Cam Ward's success. And how can they support Cam Ward's success? He is the number 1 priority. We'll see how they manage it. Speaking of Cam Ward, Gino Torretta was made an appearance on John Gruden's, I think it's a podcast or is it a YouTube show? I guess those things can be the same. Either way, Gino Torretta, the former Miami quarterback, on Cam Ward from John Gruden's podcast. You're going to hear that coming up next. Premier Generators is here to help you, just as they have helped so many other people prepare and plan for storms. They are now in Nashville as the largest certified Generac dealer in Tennessee. The power outages, when they strike, you want to make sure you protect your family with a top-tier generator, expertly installed by local specialists. Premier Generators dedicates itself solely to generators, offering unmatched expertise. Plus, you can enjoy the peace of mind with an extended 10-year warranty. Don't wait for the next storm. Schedule your consultation today. Visit premiergenerators.com. That's premiergenerators.com. Be prepared and choose Premier Generators for reliable power solutions, and make sure you call the number 1-855-797-4766. That's 1-855-797-4766.
Heard the Mark Patrick weight loss hypnosis hype? Well, I attended because my father stopped smoking. I lost 70 pounds and my friend lost 20 pounds in the first 2 months.
Wow, what are you waiting for? Join Mark Patrick seminars and lose the weight or stop smoking guaranteed for only $49.99.
Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, the best hot chicken in the world. You're going to hear from Gino Torretta in an interview with John Gruden talking about Cam Ward here in just a second. Take some phone calls, too. Before we get to that, coming off that Brian Callahan conversation, if you are still trying to take advantage of what remains of the summer months, 104.5 The Zone has teamed up with Holiday World and Splash and Safari for the 2025 season. Holiday World and Splash and Safari's water coasters and slides are the cool splash of fun your family needs this summer. They are less than 3 hours away. You can enjoy free soft drinks and parking, too. To sign up for a chance to win tickets, you can go to 1045thezone.com/contests today. Holiday World. You ever been to Holiday World, Ross?
I have not. I was more of a Great Wolf Lodge attendee.
Great Wolf Lodge. So that's an indoor water park, right?
Yes, in Gatlinburg they have one, or Pigeon Forge, I guess. Very nice.
That's a chain?
Great Wolf Lodge? I think so.
I'm not familiar. Holiday World is a standalone institution. You can imagine that each section of the park is a different holiday that you make your way around. Lake Rudolph is the lake that Holiday World is based around, and it is in the same town, Santa Claus, Indiana, that Jay Cutler is from.
Wow.
Yeah. All your Holiday World facts?
Just added something to my trivia.
It's where we used to go in high school.
Just tore it up at Holiday World?
Yeah, man. I mean, when somebody when somebody gets their license for the first time, like Holiday World during the summer is like one of the first trips.
Well, sounds like a great time. Yeah. That's not what my generation grew up on, but...
What my generation grew up on.
We're not in the same generation. You're old.
You and I are not the same generation. I'm a millennial. What are you?
I think I'm actually a millennial. I don't even know.
Yeah, you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
But you're old. You're a decade older than me almost.
Whoa. 9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What month is your birthday?
It's Sunday. What'd you get me?
So you're about... Well, don't want you to be disappointed. But yeah, you're about to be a decade older than me. How does that make you feel?
Oh, I don't care
Because you said
anymore.
I looked 25 yesterday, so...
No, you look 35. You sound 55. You're fighting uphill on a variety of different fronts. The fact that you and I look like we could be peers is more of a you problem than a me problem, bud.
Well, I don't really know how to respond to that.
Exactly. Well, you don't need to respond at all. Get out of here. Let me hear from Gino Torretta with John Gruden talking about Cam Ward and the evaluation process when Cam Ward first arrived at Miami. We'll get back to the phone calls here in just a second, but let's start with Gino first.
Did you see a lot of Cam Ward this past season?
I did. I talked to Shannon Dawson, the OC, and I'm like, well, what's the deal? Because Cam was coming, then he wasn't coming. He was going to the NFL. And then I was like, well, what's the backup plan? He goes, well, we feel pretty good that he's going to come. All I needed was one day of spring ball. I go, this guy has an elite arm. I go, who evaluated him in the NFL? That was my first thought. I go, there's no way he should be here. Like, you watch a guy throw it, you can just see it. I mean, let's say there's 100 quarterbacks in the league. 10 guys, maybe the ball comes off a little different.
Yep.
The other 90, everybody looks the same. You could, put a short and T-shirt on, everybody kind of looks the same. And I'm like, they effed up. That was my initial thought, because I was like, he reminded me of when he threw the ball. It was like Warren Moon. When Warren, I remember being in Seattle, it always seemed like he would throw the ball. First off, he never threw a bad ball, always a tight spiral. And the ball would almost kind of move for the receiver's angle, make it an easy catchable ball. And that was Cam.
So that's Gino Torretta. And he brings up an interesting point. So Cam Ward could have declared for the NFL draft ahead of the 2024 NFL draft. Coming out of Wazoo, there was enough of a sample size for him to think that he could be a draft pick. Whether he would have been a first-round draft pick was very much in dispute. I believe the valuation that Cam Ward, and he's talked about this, it might be worth revisiting, but the valuation that Cam Ward was given was a projected third round or at least day 3 pick. What Gino Torretta brings up is an interesting point there. Is that on Cam Ward, or is that on the people evaluating him coming out as a college prospect? Because even this cycle, how long did it take people to get to Cam Ward as consensus number 1 overall pick? Cosell was on it at the Combine, prior to the Combine. I think about a month before Greg was on the podcast talking, which is why you need to listen to Cosell. Greg, he's very thorough in his film evaluation. What Greg spends his time doing, by the way, we'll tape a new episode of The Install tomorrow. We'll put a bow on our divisional recaps with the AFC South, and we'll probably play a chunk of that for you tomorrow. Hell, in fact, you know what, Ross, just for the sake of ease, we may just have Greg on the radio show tomorrow because I forgot I'm doing Fox. I forgot I'm doing Brady Quinn's show from 5 to 8 a.m. tomorrow before we do the radio show. I'm going to be terrible tomorrow, just so you know.
Well, I mean, you still have yet to get your grade for today, but I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, please. I can't wait for you to try to give me a grade and just to see what kind of grade is awaiting you on the other side.
I'm going to make up a letter, probably.
My point is, though, Gino Torretta brings up a different version of the conversation than I've heard is, well, why were the NFL people evaluating him coming out of Wazoo? Why were they correct? The NFL gets it wrong all the time. Now, it doesn't have to be like Mel Kiper, right, where Mel is screaming, they don't know what the hell they're doing. We do, right? Some version of that.
On day 2 of draft coverage or 3.
We didn't really have the sound on because I do the draft at the Titans facility in a room with the rest of Titans media, and we wait for the picks to be made. They put the kids on a Zoom call with us afterwards, and we trudge on down to the press conference room, and we talk to whoever they put in front of us, Callahan, Borgonzi, whoever. So we don't really have the draft coverage audio on because Twitter's usually faster anyway. But I was seeing so much interaction about Mel on Twitter that we finally turned the volume up, and certainly on day 3 when Shador hadn't gone yet. And Mel, I know people were tired of it by the end of it, but I was just waiting to see Mel crash out. That was the only reason to watch the draft cover. What the hell do I care about day 3 of the NFL draft?
He essentially did. And it was kind of awkward, too, because the rest of the panel was almost
they're trying to back him down. Reese Davis doing his best to be diplomatic the whole time. When Mel Kiper says the NFL doesn't know what the hell they're doing with quarterback evaluation, but we, pointing at himself, do. Louis Riddick, the way that his head slumped. I meant to ask Louis about that when he was on the radio show.
He probably just had Jimmy Clausen in his mind or something. One of those quarterbacks Mel's definitely not hit on.
Mel's gotten plenty right, but he's gotten plenty wrong. Just like anybody, right? Though that's the thing. That's the point. The NFL can get it right. The NFL can get lucky. The NFL, more often than not, gets it wrong. So could Cam Ward have come out in 2024 and an NFL team looked around Michael Penix style or Bo Nix style and be like, what are you talking about, day 3 pick? I'll take that kid 8th. I'll take that kid 12th. Or where did McCarthy go? McCarthy went
11th, right, to Minnesota's 13th.
It was in the teens. Somewhere in the teens. But J.J. McCarthy, there's a bigger sample size of Cam Ward prior to Miami being a better or at least more tape of Cam Ward playing the quarterback position than J.J. McCarthy handing it off in the Michigan offense.
Well, also, I remember Cam saying, and I think, now NFL scouts do great work and they put a lot of time in, but I think he's right for the national media where he said, since I was playing at Washington State, one, it's not a huge market team, but also we're on Pacific time. People aren't staying up till midnight necessarily to watch Washington State.
I never
play
saw
football.
a Wazoo Cam Ward game live. It was all
same, yeah.
I watched them all after the fact.
But we all watch Miami, Florida, I feel like, and
Miami's on television a lot, especially when week 1 is at Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And he put on the show that he did. And then, there are many other big game moments that he had throughout the course of the season. He's just an entertaining player. So it wasn't just about Miami, it was about watching Cam Ward, especially once he entrenched himself further and further into the Heisman Trophy conversation. He finished as a finalist, not a winner, but still. I appreciate when former players weigh in on this. It's why, Blaine is probably the person who has taught me the most about how it is, or at least the context that I should be using when covering an NFL team. I'm sure I've talked to Blaine about this in person, but I just like to give him his flowers because I think Blaine has been the most influential person on me in terms of how I have viewed the job that I do and some of the context that I may not have because I just don't have the experience of a player, whether it be going through contract negotiations or dealing with organizations or from a health standpoint. Blaine has really helped me improve. I make mistakes like anybody else, or I pop off at the mouth a couple of times or run a little hot about something because I have opinions beyond just objective coverage. But I really think that Blaine has helped fill in more knowledge gaps for me than basically anybody that I've been around in. This is coming up on my 9th season covering an NFL team. And I'm hugely appreciative of that. I'd put Darren Bates in the same category, honestly. Because Bates, helped me understand the dynamics of the locker room when I was a 22-year-old pissant, not really knowing what the hell I was doing, but popping off the same way I do now.
That's the thing, though. Like, you can't, if you haven't had the experience of a player, you can't truly understand. I haven't either.
And being around them is not enough. Like, they go through a unique experience based on media coverage or different from the coaches. And we get the coach's perspective on things or the evaluator's perspective on things far more than we do truly transparent moments from the players, because it doesn't benefit the player to say anything. If Cam Ward comes out and say, yeah, they got it wrong on me, he's going to be viewed as a bit of a bleep hole. Like, they got it wrong on me coming out of Wazoo. I should have been a first-round pick either way. That's not going to help Cam Ward. People are not going to view Cam Ward favorably as a result. Gino Torretta is how many decades removed from the game, looking around and being like, I played that position. And maybe, and obviously, the NFL world and college football world and passing game have advanced from the time that Gino Torretta was quarterbacking versus Cam Ward. But still, you understand what it takes to play that position. You understand the degree of difficulty on some of these throws. Gino Torretta coming out decades removed from the game, being like, who was evaluating this kid? That they thought he was a day 3 pick after Wazoo. Because as soon as he got there, 2 days into being on campus in Miami, Josh Pate has talked about this too. You could see all the things that would eventually make him, if not the number 1 overall pick, clearly and obviously a first-round pick at the quarterback position.
This might sound really stupid, but
yeah, I hadn't stopped you before.
I know. I think more now than ever, like, social media can almost play a role in this, like play a big part. And what I mean by that is not like NFL GMs are looking on social media like
they do, by the way.
Yeah, but like, here's a highlight clip of this kid. Let's just draft him. Like, no, their jobs are more important than that. But all the exposure that Cam Ward got this year compared to last year at Washington State, I think that plays a bigger part than most people would think.
Well, let me not make it about the scouts, because you're right. Scouts aren't just like looking at Twitter highlights and going. Now, it can turn a scout or a GM onto a player that they may not have known about, and then they go seek out the full game tape or something like that. But you know who else is on Twitter that people probably don't think about?
Who?
Owners.
Yeah.
The people that run these things, the people that can get attracted by eye candy, the people that can get caught up in social media highlights, the people that can have, their kid's opinion on a Madden rating of a wide receiver influence their opinion on how you run a roster. Cough, cough, Jets. Like, that's a very real thing. There is competency at every level. There is also incompetence at every level. So while a scout may, do all the due diligence required and bang the table for Cam Ward as a first-round pick coming out of Wazoo, as opposed to his career at Miami, then vaulting him firmly into the conversation, owners make mistakes all the time. All the time, because they're basically fans, but they have control of the team. It would be like if you turned the team over to somebody on Twitter.
Well, the only reason I guess I would argue with myself on that, and it's kind of, it's a pretty rare thing, but like, what happened with Shedeur? There was arguably no program with bigger exposure for a while than Colorado with Dion there, and
they were the biggest after Saban retired. They were the biggest story in college football.
And for him to slide that far in the draft, where no one wanted to touch him, including the Browns, who picked a quarterback before him, I think that was a little odd for everyone to see, just because everybody's been seeing this kid's games and seeing him play the past couple of years with all the attention around Colorado, and everyone knows how good he is. At least he was in college, and for him to slide that far was very surprising.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to weigh in on Cam Ward or anything else that we've talked about today. Let's start with Chris in Lewisburg.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I wanted to go back to what you were talking about earlier, Buck, with Brian Callahan. I'm not so concerned about Cam Ward going forward, because really ever since, he's an amazing story to begin with, but ever since the draft, everything I've watched and listened other so-called experts talk and review about Cam Ward, they've all given glowing reports. So my main concern is with Brian Callahan, because last year, Buck, he didn't show us nothing. There was nothing you can hang your hat on that Brian Callahan did well last year, and that's what's concerning. And also his father, supposedly a offensive line guru. You think going into the season he would have come to Rand and his son and say, hey, look, guys, over here on the right side, none of these guys are NFL starters. I've been around the league so many years. We got to fix this. And they did nothing over there, and that was a big part of the problem. Now, so going forward, Brian Callahan is my biggest fear. I think that Ward is going to be okay. Of course, it always depends on the NFL where these rookies land and how they're developed and everything.
That's the minute on the clock, Chris. I didn't realize, Lucas told me this the other day, that the callers can't hear the Oscars music, which feels a bit cruel. Like they're just talking and talking and talking. They don't hear the fact that we're fading them down.
It is fairly mean.
Well, a couple of things there. I do agree with you that Brian Callahan did not have anything to hang his hat on truly as to what he was able to show you that would give you, a fan, confidence as a head coach. I disagree that Bill Callahan did not play a role in the fact that J.C. Latham, a number 7 overall pick at tackle, is now on your roster. You couldn't solve both of those things. You hoped that the former third-round pick on the roster would be able to, who, by the way, they weren't able to fully evaluate because he was injured. So I do give them a bit of grace on NPF, for example. Now J.C. Latham is going to play right tackle. So it took you a year to get Dan Moore in and J.C. Latham over. But you think that you've solved those problems. No, there is no microwave results here, right? This is going to be due diligence, time spent, money spent, draft picks spent on trying to incrementally improve a football team. So I think your initial point was sound, or your initial explanation was sound, and I think there's plenty of things that Brian Callahan did fine last year that Will Levis undermined. Not actively, not purposefully, but by his decision-making, undermined anything that Brian Callahan might have been able to show you had they had a more trustworthy player at the quarterback position. Doesn't mean that Brian Callahan will fix it, but I don't think, in the same way that none of us should be defined by our first year or first couple of months on a job. God knows the radio show was a disaster. Awful. So bad. The first, I don't know, probably more than a year. Because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Never done daily radio before. NFL reporter. I wasn't paying attention to college football. That wasn't a part of my job. I wasn't paying attention to hockey, all these other things. Like a local sports radio show was not something I knew how to do at all. And fortunately, we've figured it out, even though on a day-by-day basis, we still show our incompetence. We have improved because we were given sufficient enough time to improve. And Lucas has made it better, and Robert has made it better. And, even Ross, depending on the day, has contributed something. Not today.
Okay.
But no one person should be defined by their first year trying to do a job for the first time. But in the NFL, you don't get much longer leeway than 2.5, 3 years.
Better hope Cam Ward lights it up at some point fairly early in the season.
Well, and then he's not just doing it like with plays out of structure. Like, I want to see him win inside the concepts of the offense.
Which kind of scares me, I'm not going to lie.
What do you mean?
With Callahan's, not on Cam Ward's part, on Callahan's part.
Well, we can expand on that coming up next. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Always puts a smile on my face when we can work a little jelly into the show. Robert gave him rave reviews for his WWE performance. I just can't get over how damn skinny he is now. It makes me happy.
Do I get up in the grade sheet for putting some jelly in there or no? That's not why I did it, but since you said something, I feel like that's deserved.
Had you done it without coming to the microphone and being like, please, can I get extra bonus points? This is like going to, what do they call, office hours and pleading and pleading. Please, I'm 0.5 away from getting that C. I need to pass this class.
Coach, give me that starting job, please.
Yeah. Your need to tell everybody that you did a good thing, honestly, should have you docked points as opposed to giving you points, but I'll consider.
That's fine. We'll average out at probably a D anyways this week. So that's what I expected coming in.
Your performance does not drag me down here, but although it has the past 2 days.
Well, I got my grade for you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Been sitting on it for a while.
Okay. You can sit on something else as far as I'm concerned.
That's enough.
All right. You said you expressed some concern with Cam Ward winning within the structure of Brian Callahan's offense. Now, what you don't know about Ross, other than he sounds like he breathes through solely his mouth, is that Ross is the most accomplished athlete by a mile on the show because he is a former college football player. Now, your football insights and analysis would be welcome here because what is it about Cam Ward's MO as a player and understanding what you might understand about Brian Callahan's offense that gives you concern about the marriage of those two things?
It's a lot more on the Callahan side, I would say, than Cam Ward, because I think Cam Ward can make, quite frankly, most, if not all, throws on the football field. And I saw him play pretty well on time last year at Miami as well as off schedule. But my thing was watching the Titans offense last year. Everyone, of course, remembers the Levis turnovers, but when Rudolph was in there too, and trust me, I know Mason Rudolph is very limited, and certainly a game manager, but Mason Rudolph wasn't making those awful turnovers, yet the offense didn't look any better, really. I mean, they struggled to find ways to get Ridley and D-Hop the ball when both of them were on the team. And there's just a lot of...
Yeah, that Calvin thing didn't really work out until they traded Hopkins.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of simplicity in this offense. There's a lot of bubble screens, which I don't like, and they could never seem to get the blocking right from the perimeter perspective on those plays. And it's just basic. I mean, with Downing, it was the whole run, pass thing. It doesn't feel much different than that. Just from watching the games and seeing tendencies from Callahan, it just seems too simplistic.
Okay. Well, let me give you devil's advocate because, I'm no great defender of the Titans on a regular basis, and I think those criticisms are fair. But what if that's just last year's offense? What if there are...
just because of personnel?
Yes. What if... Because I interviewed Callahan, and listen, coaches are always going to have bread and butter, and to say that they're going to completely change the offense based on the quarterback that they have now would probably be disingenuous. They're going to have stuff from last year that's going to be implemented. But when Callahan came on at the Combine, and I wouldn't say that I pressed him on this, but just kind of asked, hey, you made sure to say at the podium that you were not going to prioritize scheme over talent. And he had a really long, thoughtful, and I thought articulate answer on why he believes that's not the case. Now, whether he's able to do that is the thing that we don't know. I anxiously await Brian Callahan's offensive acumen to showcase, I can change the offense based on what we have. Because run, pass last year, they had to. I mean, Tony Pollard is the only thing that they could reliably trust on that offense. Run, pass under Tim Kelly. I got it with Tim Kelly and Todd Downing before that because Derrick Henry's still here, 1. 2, your tackles can't block. The tackle situation was worse in 2 years of Tim Kelly than it was last year under Brian Callahan because at least you had J.C. Latham. They had to keep wide receivers, tight ends in on literally every drop back just to keep Tannehill upright from getting another high ankle sprain. So it immediately condenses your playbook, and you may have a bunch of different stuff that you want to run and might have more success if you had league average tackle play, but you didn't. You had the worst. So I think your criticism is well-founded. I also think we're still in wait-and-see mode based on how much of it actually looks like last year versus how much is going to change because Cam Ward is here.
Agreed. And I mean, I think the Titans, as far as a receiver group, are much deeper this year. Again, there's a lot of questions in that room, but I think they're deeper. And
they have more options to pick from.
And then I was a little disappointed in how he used Chig as well, but I think the addition of Gunnar Helm could help too. Chig's obviously more of a receiving tight end, and I think I would have thought that Callahan would have made more with that last year.
Maybe I invite Brian Callahan on the radio show and you can give him your criticisms in person.
I doubt he would care anything of what I have to say.
I mean, Vrabel would offer you his suggestion box, which is just a trash can in his office, because he did that to Tehran a couple of times. But Callahan, I think, might actually, maybe, I don't know how in his head he might take that, but I think he would be diplomatic in your feedback.
Lets me call plays in the preseason. No,
I'll send him this clip, and we can find out together. Ross thinks your offense sucks. Defend yourself.
Well, I mean, the one game I was in attendance for, it was not great.
Yeah, well, I was in attendance for every one of them.
I'm very sorry about that for you. Not really, but kind of.
No, just like the athletes, that's what the money's for, baby. That's okay. That's what the money's for. Polls.
This is not Lucas Panzica. This is Ross, and this is the polls presented by Two Rivers Ford.
Yeah, we can tell.
Trusted Ford dealership. Sorry. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Ashley says Teddy Bridgewater getting suspended. Tyler says SEC Media Days, audio person playing A&M's fight song.
Faster.
And then Bruce Conkle says you.
Yep.
All right, let's go to
That's the only reason he was still reading those responses. Give me one. We're about out of time.
What percentage chance do you give Cam Ward of being in ESPN's top 10 rankings? Luke Crate says 60%. That's all right.
That's high. We didn't really get to that today, but we can talk about that tomorrow.
All right. And then what's the most important thing Josh Heupel said at SEC Media Days? No one answered that, so what do you think it is?
The division of labor, or the lack of division of labor that he's looking for out of the quarterback position.
Okay. That's and then finally, the last one, where should Brian Callahan be ranked among NFL head coaches? The Stylish Steak says 33rd. And the Titans Rundown says above all rookie head coaches and below everyone else. So
that would also be fair, but last among head coaches is fine for a team that finishes the worst in football. He is more than welcome to prove otherwise, and I know he's very motivated to do just that. Those are the polls.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That is the show. Back at it with Primetime tonight. Maybe we'll talk about that Cam Ward conversation there. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Enjoy Blaine and Zach coming up next.